Good evening, Colorado, and welcome to our living room on election night. Kyle Clark alongside 9 News political reporter Marshall Zellinger, kicking off a 2-hour commercial-free political conversation. I feel like Scott Hansen setting up NFL Red Zone on Sundays. For the next 2 hours, we have the opportunity to work through the results as they come in. Polls closing in Colorado 30 seconds ago, and just have a casual conversation about what we're seeing in the numbers, what we don't yet know. We have some expert analysis from smart folks who have been involved in political campaigns as well as political polling around our state to give us some insight and analysis. And we're going to work through these numbers in real time. If you're at home right now, there's a really good chance that you're refreshing on your phone, just like we're refreshing on our phones and on our system. So we're going to see the numbers together at the same time, and we're going to talk about what they mean, what they tell us, and what we hope to learn. As we set the stage for the night more broadly, Colorado Republicans have not gone into an election night with deserved optimism in a long time. Tonight, the party has real hopes of winning some big-time races for the first time in this state since 2014. And one of the biggest questions that we have before us is, will national success by the Republican Party translate into success in Colorado, where this party, the GOP, is at its weakest point since pre-World War II?
You have the national picture, will it bleed over to Colorado, but you also have internally what we call down ballot. So you start with the governor's race. In a situation where it appears, I've talked with people within the Republican Party, that they have concerns about the governor's race being a blowout for the Democrats, and will that impact the down ballot races for the Senate and for Attorney General and Secretary of State? So you've got both. You've got, if there's a red wave coming nationally, does it stop at Colorado? The mountains put up a barrier. Or does it stop because internally races were run poorly? Or does that wave blow over Colorado, and yeah, you're going to get a few of the reds that were unexpected. Yeah. And we're going to have our, as soon as we start getting results, I get to go to my touchscreen. I get to be the Steve Kornacki of Colorado, dressed a little bit more nicer, I think, you know, whatever.
So let's talk about what's happening right now, like right at this moment. So polls have been closed for 2 minutes and 30 seconds in Colorado. We could put up a useless graphic that tells you that things are too close to call. But you're intelligent enough that you know that. So what's happening now is a continuation of what has been happening for some time, which is that votes are being counted. Unlike some states like Pennsylvania that put prohibitions on when elections workers can begin the count, in Colorado, where people have been voting for weeks, the votes are being taken out of envelopes and they're being tabulated, and that's the reason why the first group of numbers that we're going to get is going to be a significant ballot drop, because it'll be a lot of those early votes.
Denver elections, if you want to be, I'm going to say this multiple times, if you want to be a nerd like me, you can go to the Denver elections website and watch the processing of ballots happening in real time. When we're going to get results, it will be reflective of anything dropped off from when ballots were sent to voters and they could have returned them the same day. So I think that was October 17th, if my memory serves correctly. That can go all the way until yesterday. Those ballots have been processed. They've been accepted, processed. The ones that don't have signature concerns or anything like that, counted. And they hit total. And you can see this is what's happening in Denver. The top left is where the ballots are received. I can't, you know, it has to frame just out of frame ever so slightly.
Ballot receiving top left, and then
ballot drop, I think.
Yep, and then you've got ballot counting in the bottom left, signature verification in the top right. That's where they check to make sure that your voter signature on the outside of the envelope matches the one that they have on file.
And if it doesn't, your ballot is, it's not, your envelope is not opened. It's set aside. They contact you, and you've got 8 days from today, 8 days after the election, to correct it, to send something that says, yes, I legitimately turned that in. I'm sorry my signature didn't look like what you thought it should look like. Please, it's me. And then they'll open the envelope, remove the ballot, and count it. So that's why results will change 8 days following the election. So that happens with signature verification, and you can see the whole process there through Denver elections. And if you turned your ballot in through yesterday, when we get the first tranche of results, it will include those ballots.
Polls have been closed in Colorado for 5 minutes now. It's conceivable that there are still people voting, because anybody who was in line to vote by 7 p.m. is allowed to vote in our state. If there was ever at any point in the process going to be a line at a polling place in Colorado, it would be 7 p.m. on election night.
Sure, but in Colorado, because we're mail-in ballot heavy, if you are approaching a mail-in ballot drop box at 7 and 10 seconds,
it's got to be in the box.
You're going to get the stop sign.
Yeah.
If you're in line because there's a line of people dropping them off, that's allowed. But if you're walking up and it's free and clear and it's 7 and 30 seconds, you missed the window.
Yep. So here we are at 7:05. We expect that we're going to get that first big ballot drop right around 7:15 or so probably 10 minutes from now. So again, to talk about what we are going to see and what we are not going to see. Unlike elections in some other states, you're not going to see a situation where we say X% of the vote counted, because we don't know what the universe of total votes is going to be. We could take an educated guess at what it's going to be, but we don't know that because we aren't sure how many people came and dropped ballots late today or who voted in person late today. And this brings up an interesting situation that we have right now in this state, and a reason why it's difficult to look at our last midterms in 2018 and do an apples-to-apples comparison. And the issue is voter confidence in the process, and specifically concerns amongst conservatives about election integrity. Obviously, a lot of that comes from former President Trump, comes from a lot of very prominent voices in the conservative movement in Colorado. But you have Colorado conservatives with some following, activists telling people, do not vote until today. Do not vote early. Do not vote your mail ballot. Go and vote in person, and this got real specific, vote in person after 3 p.m. today with a blue pen, because they believe that that is how you're going to ward off election rigging, for which they've presented no evidence whatsoever. But what that practically could do then is bring in a little late wave of Republican votes. And we simply have no way to measure that until the votes are counted tonight.
And that's counterintuitive to some of the extreme messaging of why are the counts changing so late after election night? We should know by 9 p.m. We should know by midnight. And when you come in at 3 p.m. to 7 p.m., turning in your ballot with your blue ink on it, which is still fine, but when you come in that late, we hear this from every county clerk. The more people that turn in their ballots on Tuesday creates the more work Tuesday night into Wednesday. Here's how it's going to work
as they say at DIA on the train, you are delaying the departure of this train. You know, if you choose to vote late, which is completely within your rights, you absolutely can vote until 7 o'clock. You are delaying this process here because your information is coming in late. So as Marshall points out, it is a bit hypocritical to say drop your ballots at the last second or vote in person at the last second, but then why does the vote take so long? It takes so long because of that. Colorado has a process that can move a lot faster and is designed to move a lot faster and gives people that kind of comfort about the idea that most of the votes are going to be counted on Election Day. We know that all of the votes will not be counted on Election Day because Colorado allows military and overseas ballots to come in for, is it 8 more days? 8 more days. They've got 8 more days to come in. So there are votes that are going to come in later. And this has become a bone of contention in the governor's race just within the last 24 to 48 hours, where you have Republican gubernatorial candidate Heidi Ganahl dancing around the edges of some election integrity concerns, election denial kind of thing. She went on Steve Bannon, the former Trump advisor's TV show yesterday, and talked about how Republicans have to vote huge so they can overwhelm the system. And that's a common thing that you hear in election denying circles about Republicans have to win big to outsmart the algorithms or the rigging or whatever else. And she also asked the county clerks to announce tonight how many untabulated ballots they have. Those clerks won't necessarily know that number because some of them are still coming in. And she also said that she likes that clerks are going to do a parallel hand count, which people say, oh, hand count, like one by one. That's got to be better than a machine count. They've actually studied this.
Not only study it, but the county that's going to do it, Elbert County, a year and a half ago, after the 2020 presidential election, Dallas Schroeder, the Republican clerk, did a hand count and confirmed the tabulation was more accurate, that they found the hand count was off by 1 or 2, and it was human error that made it off of the computers. And since then, he has done a hand count again for grins, and I understand he may be the one county, at least, that would do a hand count here. I'll point out, when we get these results any moment now. We won't get really consistent updates for 90. We'll see some trickle in, but the big counties like Denver and Boulder, 90 minutes they'll wait to stop, tabulate, hit total again, and update the numbers, because everything that you saw on those 6 screens happening in Denver elections has to stop to tabulate. So that's the concern about turning ballots in so late, is that you're having all those election workers do the process, but then they have to stop through the counting so that you can tabulate some. And if you turn it in earlier, that's all done prior to election night, and so that's where we get some results, which I'm going to head over to my screen and leave you here at the desk.
As we begin to get results, just for the folks who are in our control room, by all means, just toss them up, and we'll take a look at them in real time as you get them. It looks like what we have are some of the very earliest preliminary votes in the race for governor.
I have not been prepped on this, but what you can see here, we've got Denver County and some ancillary counties that are reporting right now. Let's just zoom in on Denver County to start with. I'm going to have to refresh this to touch on the counties, but we'll just give an overview. With the first batch of votes, 116,000 is minuscule of that at the moment, but Jared Polis 78% to 20% for Heidi Ganahl. Let's look at the Senate real quickly. Now this is what we're going to focus on. A lot of the performance between how is Heidi Ganahl performing against the Democrat Jared Polis, and is Joe O'Dea running for Senate outperforming how she is doing? And just on this quick look, I'll go back and forth real quick, you can see the 28.3% for Ganahl compared to 30.6% in the same counties that are currently reporting. That shows O'Dea 2% outperforming what is considered top of the ballot, which is the governor's race. Let's see what else we have here. Nothing from Secretary of State or Attorney General and these congressional districts. Again, early right now, this is just 3,300 votes in Congressional District 7, where Ed Perlmutter is retiring. The district has been redrawn, so we can't really look at history to tell us what this means. But in this first batch, you can see Republican Eric Adlin ahead of Brittany Pettersen, and then Eric Odlin ahead of Brittany Pettersen. Nothing in CD8 right now. I am going to refresh my screen so I can touch the individual counties to get a better look at what's going on county by county, Kyle.
So I would beg of you, don't screenshot those results and send them around to people if they confirm your biases or confirm your preferences. These numbers are very, very preliminary. As Marshall said, they're minuscule totals coming in. So please don't divine anything from those until we start to get those larger ballot drops coming in. Let's talk about what we might start to see tonight if Republicans are riding the wave they believe is going to happen nationwide. First up would be the 8th Congressional District. That's that newly drawn district, Adams and Weld County. Republican Barb Kirkmeyer and Democrat Yadira Caraveo. That is probably the most winnable big race for Republicans in Colorado. That's a district that is believed to lean a bit toward the Republicans right now, toward Kirkmeyer's campaign. You don't have to believe the polling. Look at the way that the campaigns are behaving and talking about the race. In some of the closing weeks, the Caraveo campaign was stressing that they believed that the race was neck and neck. That's what you say if you think you're trailing slightly, or it is in fact neck and neck. That's not something that you say if you think that you have the advantage. That is the first domino to fall for Colorado Republicans if they are in fact going to have a good night. Then they can start to dream big. And what does dreaming big look like? Well, if Democrats really are in the soup tonight, nationwide and in Colorado, then that presents an opening for Joe O'Dea, the Republican running for U.S. Senate. His campaign will acknowledge that he is an underdog. Underdog and an outsider is the thing that they like to stress. He's a business guy running against Democratic Senator Michael Bennett. All the polling in this race has shown that Bennett has an edge. That said, Senator Bennett has a history of underperforming down the home stretch. Recall 6 years ago, he finished fairly poorly in a tighter than expected race against Republican Darrell Glenn. If you don't remember Republican Darrell Glenn, that's because nobody remembers Republican Darrell Glenn. I think the dude ran one TV ad and it was him doing Bowflex. He was a very well-built guy, but he did not have a lot by way of financing to run against Bennett. Bennett kind of squeaked that one out by, I want to say, mid-single digits. So the thought of him facing a well-financed and much more disciplined candidate in Joe O'Dea has Republicans hopeful that if this wave does materialize, that the Senate could be within their sights. Marshall?
Darrell Glenn could bench press both of us combined.
With one arm.
I'm showing 2016, that race that you were just talking about, it was a 5.7% difference. I'm going to change this in real time. You can see blue indicates where Michael Bennett won the counties. Red indicates where Darrell Glenn won the counties. And if I hit this heat map, it's not great for TV, so I don't do it. But it shows, was it 50-50? Was it 60-40? That's where that heat, but this is basically if you were 50% plus one for Bennett, that county turned blue. 50% plus one for Glenn, it turned red. So let's just look currently where we're at, as many of these are white because they're not reporting, but we are getting metro area counties to report. Bennett currently leading over O'Dea, 60 to 37%. I'm going to do that flip to the governor's race real quick so we can see how is O'Dea outperforming Ganahl. Are they keeping pace? 31.5% for Ganahl. O'Dea considerably currently outperforming Ganahl in the counties that are reporting, Kyle.
Marshall, can we talk about ticket splitting? Let's talk about ticket splitting. So I think one big question that a lot of folks have is how many voters are willing to split their ticket on high-profile races. And ticket splitting has become less common in Colorado, more likely over the years that people are going to vote a straight party line. But it's pretty apparent that there's going to be a significant difference in performance tonight between Republican gubernatorial candidate Heidi Ganahl, who has, shall we say, not run a great race, and Republican Senate candidate Joe O'Dea. So the question is, how many points separate Ganahl's votes from O'Dea's votes? How close can O'Dea get?
Cyrus, keep this shot. It's great. Just watch this. The totals are on the right. The vote totals. Polis with 530,000, Ganahl 293. The same counties where people have voted for governor have also turned in their ballots for Senate, and Michael Bennett has 20-some-odd thousand fewer votes. Joe O'Dea, I'm going to do this fast again. Joe O'Dea, 22,000 more votes in the same counties that are reporting Ganahl and O'Dea. So in the same counties that are reporting all the results so far, which says 20-some-odd thousand people have split the ticket voting for Polis and O'Dea. Pretend
I was looking at my phone and show me again.
Let's do it one more time. This is, oh, we lost the tight shot, but that's fine. The governor's race, 293,000 for Ganahl, 315,000 for O'Dea.
That doesn't strike me as a particularly significant gap between the two in the counties for which we have these earliest results.
And one of the counties we do not have, the glaring El Paso County, that's going to be beneficial for a Republican vote. We are seeing some from Mesa County. We're going to introduce David Flaherty at some point, our pollster from Magellan Strategies. David, what other counties, you could just shout to me real quick, what other counties are going to be beneficial for the Republicans that I should highlight so far?
It should be El Paso, Marshall, without question. It's going to be Weld County. Even though there's a lot of new growth there and registration has changed over time there, those two where there's a lot of growth, Weld's the fastest growing county out of all 64 counties in voter registration since 2018. And then Douglas County has also been a bedrock of Republican strength. However, it has also changed over time. And the one thing to keep in mind, gentlemen, is the electorate, the registration of Colorado's voters compared to 4 years ago is not the same. With all due respect, we have a lot more voters. We have roughly 500,000 more voters than we did 4 years ago. But it's not a third necessarily, as you may think. Unaffiliated voters have really jumped up higher than you could even imagine compared to 4 years ago. Republican voting strength has declined, as Democrats some, but not as much as Republicans. So that sets a slightly different table in comparing to the last midterm election.
Dave, can I ask you a question? And again, all of this is just informed speculation about what the electorate is going to look like. But how many points ahead of Ganahl is O'Dea going to have to run to have a decent chance of beating Michael Bennett? You have the Ganahl campaign out there touting a poll that shows them down 7 points. They're saying, hey, look, here's a Republican poll that shows us down 7. So even if we assume that's their best case scenario, does that mean that O'Dea's got to run 7 points ahead of Ganahl?
Arguably, yes. I would say that's accurate, Kyle, simply because, the most accurate way to measure voter opinion and voter strength in a horse race election such as this is a group of surveys, a group of polls. And even though there is one poll that shows a much closer race than the other polls that are there, the averages have shown Heidi Ganahl running a good 7-8 points behind Joe O'Dea in his matchup with Senator Bennett.
Watch what I do with the map here. Douglas County, where Heidi Ganahl lives, is going to Jared Polis right now. Again, these are ballots that were turned in through Monday. So if people in Douglas County, particularly the Republicans, were waiting until 3 o'clock and then turning in their ballots today, that does not show up on this map right now. Another cool tool that we have with this is, I'm going to go back to the Senate race. We're going to compare 2022 currently to the last Senate race, Hickenlooper versus Gardner. I know this is already the total. So this is when a map is full. That's what the final results were. The Bennett-O'Dea numbers are clearly a work in progress. But we can also look county by county. And so Douglas County, currently, based on the ballots that have been turned in, where Jared Polis is beating Heidi Ganahl, Joe O'Dea, the Republican, is leading Michael Bennett. So that's one county where you can see right there, there's a significant difference. And the difference in vote total, 51% to 46%, Bennett currently, I know we have a lot still to come from Douglas County, is outperforming how John Hickenlooper performed 2 years ago.
Okay, if Jared Polis beats Heidi Ganahl in Douglas County, I will take you to the Castle Rock outlets and buy you a new suit if that happens. That's not going to hold through the evening. These are our earliest results in, but it's what we have to work with at this point, and that's something that we should all be preparing for as the night goes on. Is what kind of distance, what kind of outperformance can Joe O'Dea have over Heidi Ganahl's numbers if what happens is what we think, which is that Polis performs pretty well. I'm sorry, one more time in my ear. NBC News says they've seen enough, and they are ready to call the Colorado governor's race for incumbent Democrat Jared Polis. This is not a surprise, and you'd have to wonder how much of this is based on prior polling as opposed to the paltry votes that are in so far. But again, as David Flaherty, our pollster, was talking about, Ganahl was pointing to an outlier poll that showed her down 7, and the polling average had her down solidly double digits, if not into mid-double digits. But NBC News is projecting, this is NBC News national projection, that Jared Polis is reelected governor of Colorado, which would continue the Republican drought in that office, where there has been a single Republican, Bill Owens, elected in Colorado in the last 50 years.
I'm flipping through the metro area. Arapahoe County, significant, 2-1, Jared Polis. Douglas County, 50-50. Jefferson County, not quite 2-1, but close to that. Denver, it's going to be blowout, we know, for Democrats there. Even Broomfield County, 2-1. Boulder, of course, Jared Polis would win there in his home area. But Weld finally populated to what David was saying we wanted to look at. David, a 10,000 vote advantage for Heidi Ganahl. That's in Weld. We still don't have El Paso. And Adams isn't reporting yet. Do you see any math that NBC is just missing right now?
I do not. I believe that the data that they have, and looking at turnout data through today on Election Day where they are, that this is a relatively safe forecast from NBC News based on the available data that's out there from both election return data as well as depending on how much. And again, a lot of the last, I would just say this, some of the final polls that came into the Colorado average on this governor's race came from Republican-affiliated polling outfits, just to keep that in mind. And I'm not saying by any means they're cooking the books to make it look better for the Republican candidate. Many of those polls were quality, if you will. Bottom line is that, as you mentioned, Kyle, there was one final survey in there that perhaps is looking very much like an outlier at this time.
So I want to let you know about what's coming up, but this is actually just kind of a secretive way to let Marshall know what's coming up, which is in just about 2 minutes, we are going to be joining all of the folks who are watching national election night coverage on NBC, on 9 News. And we're going to have them alongside with us for about 2 minutes' time. and then it'll be back to just us again talking. So this would be a great time for Marshall to get that big board ready to talk about the call in the Polis-Ganahl race, because that's what we're going to be talking about when we bring folks in on the NBC side. If you happen to know that there are friends or neighbors who would be interested in Colorado results and analysis, commercial free now through 9 o'clock, feel free to let them know. We are streaming on 9 News Plus and on 9news.com, and also we are over the air on KTVD Channel 20. Lots of places to find us and hang out with us tonight as we have an extended conversation about the races that we are watching this evening. I'm going to show you some of the latest numbers while we join our friends at NBC. Good evening. NBC News projects that Democratic Governor Jared Polis will defeat his Republican challenger Heidi Ganahl. The call coming from NBC News headquarters roughly 20 minutes after the polls closed in Colorado, meaning a blowout victory expected for Polis. This continues a Republican drought in the governor's mansion in Colorado, with only one Republican governor, Bill Owens, elected in this state in the last 50 years. I want to bring in my colleague, 9 News political reporter Marshall Zellinger, to talk about the results that we are seeing. These are early numbers, but they confirm what everyone expected about this race, which is that Ganahl is not in the ballpark.
Yeah, well, let's start with the total votes. 950,000 total votes have been counted so far, and I know as of like 3:30 or something, I want to say the number of ballots received was like 1.8 million. So what NBC is reporting is based on at least half, if not just slightly less than half the total votes. I'm zoomed in on the metro area. All of the counties that you would expect, Arapahoe, Denver, even Jefferson leaning Polis, Boulder, of course, where he's from, Broomfield there. Weld is just outside of the range here, where it's an advantage for Heidi Ganahl, but Douglas, where she lives, where some voters may be holding on to their ballots because they were told wait until the end of election day to turn in your ballot. Currently, Jared Polis winning in Heidi Ganahl's home county. As I zoom the map out, you can see a lot of counties have not reported anything, including Republican strongholds in El Paso County, where Colorado Springs is. We're seeing Mesa County reporting, and Weld County. We have nothing from Adams right now. And before I give it back to Kyle, a quick look at the Senate. You can see Joe O'Dea outperforming how Heidi Ganahl has performed so far in these counties where the ballots have been turned in.
Big question now is whether Heidi Ganahl raises questions about the integrity of the election. She's been hinting at it over the last 2 days, but NBC News says it's over. She's on her way to a blowout at the hands of Governor Polis. Our coverage continues locally on KTVD Channel 20. Welcome back, friends. You're watching our election night living room conversation here on KTVD Channel 20, streaming on 9 News Plus and on 9news.com. All those folks who are watching the national coverage on 9 News are gone now, so it's just us. Well, and Marshall Zellinger and also David Flaherty, our pollster expert tonight, to break down the races. And that call in the governor's race from NBC News came fast even by our expectations. And now we get to talk about what happens at this point. Heidi Ganahl has raised some questions in the last 48 hours that at least flirt with the idea of election denial. She did a bit of this at the beginning of her campaign as well. She was caught on tape at an event in southern Colorado telling people, you know, I'm with you on all this election stuff, but you know I can't talk about that because that doesn't win races. Then she put a lid on it for the better part of the campaign, and in the last couple of days has returned to it. Yesterday, she went on Steve Bannon's War Room program. She appeared directly before election denier Mike Lindell, the pillow guy. And Ganahl echoed a lot of what Lindell was about to come on to say about how they have to vote big Republican to overcome the system. Lindell called it overwhelming the algorithm. This idea that Republicans have to have an insurmountable victory or else somehow Democrats are going to cheat them out of it. Ganahl also started issuing instructions to county clerks in Colorado. She has as much power over county clerks as you or me or the guy at the convenience store. But she told them that she wanted them to announce uncounted ballots at the end of the night. And she saluted those doing hand counts, which is a popular refrain amongst election deniers. So the question becomes tonight. NBC News says that Heidi Ganahl has lost the governor's race. Nothing wrong with waiting for some more results to come in to confirm that fact. But will she concede? I think that would have been out of the question that we would even talk about that maybe a couple of weeks ago, but based on the events of the last 48 hours, Marshall, I think it's a legitimate question to ask whether Ganahl chooses to cast doubts on the results of this election.
I'll say, will she accept that a news organization has said she has lost when there's still half the votes still to count, if not a little more? Perhaps that would be the defense. Hey, we still know there's at least 1 million votes to count, so let's wait. That could be the response. As of 3:30, there were a little more than 2 million votes turned in. So to her request, the Secretary of State's office did put this information out there that they know this many ballots were turned in. And as you can see, where it says total votes under the percentages, right about here, about 1 million, more than 1 million votes have been counted so far. And as of 3:30, a little more than 2 million were turned in. So that's about half of the votes as of 3:30. And we know plenty more votes came in between 3:30 and 7 o'clock. I'm going to show you this current map, which is the blue counties are where Jared Polis has 50% plus 1 advantage. The red counties, Heidi Ganahl 50% plus 1. And the white counties haven't reported any data yet. I'm going to show you quickly what it looked like 4 years ago when Jared Polis faced Walker Stapleton. And the only county that's going to change color when I did it as a test is Douglas County. So let's see. I don't know if you're going to be able to see it very well because it lights up, but watch Douglas. I think it's the only one that changes colors, and that is because of the ballots that have been reported so far from Douglas County. It's an edge by about 3,500 for Heidi Ganahl as we compare. There's that, and you can see Walker Stapleton took Douglas County by 28,000 votes, and right now it's Polis by 3,500 votes. But as we talked about, Republicans, the ones that were concerned about election integrity, were told, hold on to your ballot, ask for a fresh ballot after 3 p.m., fill it out a certain way. And so perhaps there's this bucket of Republican ballots that are waiting to be counted that were turned in between 3 and 7 p.m. And that is why Heidi Ganahl's home county is currently blue.
So, and I think that's kind of the lingering question, because one thing that we're always looking to be able to do on election night is not just tell you what we know, but then tell you what we know about what we know, and whether we think we've got a handle on the majority of the universe of information or whether we just know a sliver of it. And just a second here, we're going to take you out to the GOP watch party where they're hoping to have a big celebration tonight. But actually, I would love to talk to our pollster David Flaherty again real quick before we go out to GOP headquarters. David, what do you make of the idea of whether we can compare this year's turnout numbers to the 2018 midterm and the way that ballots came in then based on changing attitudes about election integrity?
Well, without question, Kyle, Republicans were holding on to their ballots. Just to have some data to back that up for you, going into Election Day in December, or going into Election Day, excuse me, on the morning in 2018, 205,000 ballots had been cast total, and Republicans made up 46% of all the ballots returned. This morning, though, if you count the 192,000 ballots that roughly had been turnout on, I'm sorry, I'm looking at El Paso County. My apologies, getting my spreadsheets a little bit mixed up here. My apologies. Okay, let's go back a little bit. On Election Day of 2018, roughly 1.8 million ballots had been returned, and of those, 33% were Republican, 33% Democrat, 33% unaffiliated. This morning, 4 years later, dramatically different story. Unaffiliates make up nearly 40% of ballots returned this morning. Democrats 31%, so they dropped a couple of points. But dramatically, Republicans are down almost 5 points, making up about 28%. Hence, we assume this is because of the strategy of holding on to their ballots just for election integrity purposes and the belief among many Republicans. So yes, there are likely a lot more Republican ballots to be counted before the count is through. But at the end of the day, also, like I said earlier in the broadcast, it's not an apples-to-apples comparison when you look at registration and other things. Republican voting strength has declined. So has Democrats, but not as much. But unaffiliated voting strength has skyrocketed since 4 years ago. And for the first time, really, we're seeing that occur in this, sort of new registrating lineup.
David, thank you. We have an NBC News projection in the race for U.S. Senate in Colorado. NBC News projects the Democratic U.S. Senator Michael Bennett is reelected and defeats his GOP challenger, Joe O'Dea. We currently have, let me see, short of 1 million votes counted in that race. But NBC News, again, is projecting based on the current vote totals and their own the polling that they've been looking at that Michael Bennett defeats Joe O'Dea. Marshall, what are you seeing in the numbers?
So my math's a little more updated. We've got a little more than 1 million total votes, and it's narrower compared to the governor's race. But as you see currently, what we have with 1 million votes in, Michael Bennett with a 58% advantage, Joe O'Dea not quite 40%. We're still waiting for El Paso County. That's going to bump up Joe O'Dea considerably. There's a lot of the white counties that will have a minor impact on Joe O'Dea bumping up. But yeah, let's just do the quick comparison again to the governor's race, where Heidi Ganahl had 37% of these same counties, where Joe O'Dea has received 39.4%. This is not going to be entirely helpful until we get a complete accounting of the votes of the entire state. But 2 years ago, when we also had a U.S. Senate race, John Hickenlooper defeated Cory Gardner by 301,000 votes. Currently, Joe O'Dea is only trailing, if you want to say only, by 193,000. I want to do the same thing on the governor's race that was called earlier by NBC. Currently, based on what we have, Heidi Ganahl is trailing 246,000. And when all was said and done, actually we're comparing this one to 2 years ago in the president's race, Joe Biden outperformed Donald Trump by 439,000. So Heidi Ganahl has cut that not quite in half, but it'd be better to compare it actually to 2018, where we can see when all was said and done, Walker Stapleton lost by 268,000. Currently, Heidi Ganahl trailing by 246,000. But as we pointed out here, Joe O'Dea in the Senate race is performing better in this split ticket environment, where it appears there are voters out there that voted for Jared Polis and Joe O'Dea, but based on NBC's projection, just not enough voting for Joe O'Dea.
Let's take a step back from the numbers. If you come into tonight and said that in this year, in which Colorado Republicans had pinned so much of their hopes that the two biggest prizes would have been taken off the map by 7:35 p.m., I mean, yikes. NBC News projecting Democratic Governor Jared Polis reelected, Democratic Senator Michael Bennett reelected in Colorado. This is early in the evening. Let's just say that the GOP victory party, folks haven't even had the opportunity to park their car in Greenwood Village yet. I think that's where it is, Greenwood Village or the Tech Center, one of the two of those. The victory party hasn't even had a chance to go to the bar and order a drink, and those two are over. We don't have the ability to show you that picture? Nope. All right. We do. Let's do it. Let's go out there. Steve Steger, any reaction at the GOP victory party to these two quick early calls for Polis and Bennett?
Not a single reaction, Kyle. I will tell you that drinks are flowing. So people have had a chance to get to the bar here at the GOP watch party at the Doubletree in Greenwood Village is actually where we are. The screens out here have been on Fox News all night long, where there was a brief mention of both races and no attention given to either of those races so far. And we've seen just about barely anybody kind of make their way here into the main ballroom. A lot of people are kind of tucked along the outside edge, just watching these results come back. I think we've got a shot from Foster Gaines. I'm not sure if we could take a look at that and just kind of see some of the people who are crowded along the side here, just taking in the results. But not a lot of reaction here, and we had expected to see Heidi Ganahl here briefly. We have not actually seen her emerge into the ballroom yet. I've seen a couple of other candidates like Pam Anderson, who's the Republican candidate for Secretary of State. I have not seen Heidi Ganahl make her way into the ballroom. We did hear that Heidi Ganahl had told her supporters earlier that she was planning on election night to head to a bar in Sedalia. Meet me there by 8:15, she said. I confirmed with a Republican spokesman here tonight that Heidi Ganahl did plan on being here, but then going out to that bar in Sedalia. It'd be interesting to see if we hear from her at all or see her at all before she goes to that other party in Sedalia, Kyle, but really no reaction. I've heard some grumbling on the ground. A lot of people did expect this to go this way for Heidi Ganahl. A little bit of grumbling about the way the campaign was run on the top of the ticket, but so far, not a whole lot of people are here celebrating. They're just kind of watching and taking in what's going on around the country.
You have to wonder, Steve, if this is going to be a situation almost like, you know, people on the train to the Broncos game learning that the Broncos are down 27-0 in the first quarter and deciding that they're just going to, you know, go to a bar in Lodo instead of going to the game.
There are plenty of establishments here in Greenwood Village that I'm sure that folks can kind of wander to, like right up the road is Pindustry. You know, like it's always a party there. You know, I think we'll see more people make their way in. I have heard a lot of interest in the 8th congressional race. A lot of people want to see if Barb Kirkmeyer can defeat Yadira Caraveo in that race. They believe that that's the best bet they have, and now with those two major races off the table, especially the Senate race, the question is if that's the one remaining hope here for a celebration at this victory party.
Steve, thank you. So it's been an interesting dynamic here down the stretch as almost like when you see the fighter jets in formation and then the one kind of breaks off to the side. That's kind of been the Ganahl campaign in the last couple of weeks. You've had very disciplined messaging from all the Republicans who are kind of running as a group. And the Colorado GOP is stressing kind of the unity of their ticket this year. From O'Day to John Kellner running for AG, to Lang Sias in the race for treasurer, Pam Anderson running for Secretary of State. Heidi Ganahl has courted a far-right base that the others have tried not to really interact with, especially down the line. And one sign, one physical manifestation of that is the fact that Ganahl is the only GOP candidate we're aware of who's holding a separate victory party tonight, or I guess at this point, just a party. And she's going to have an event out in Sedalia at a bar where she's had some previous events during the campaign. The thought was that she was, as Steve said, she's going to go to the big GOP party where all the other candidates are. And then she was going to go to this bar in Sedalia where the drinks are flowing and the music's playing. And they may also be blissfully unaware that NBC News has said that their candidate is headed for a blowout loss, because it looks like the TVs are tuned to Fox News there as well. But just kind of a physical indication of some of the separation between Ganahl and the other GOP candidates in this year, in which that party had so much hope for a win. Our team there at Ganahl's secondary party out in Sedalia says no announcement about anything going on has been made to the crowd at this point. So here we are at 7:43, and NBC News has projected that Democratic Governor Jared Polis will be reelected, that Democratic Senator Michael Bennett will be reelected. And at this point, if you're looking at the rest of the races out there, there's the 8th Congressional District, where Republicans will obviously be hopeful that Barb Kirkmeyer can pull out the win. That's a race in which she's favored to win. But the idea of wresting some of the other statewide constitutional offices away from Democrats might be looking slim given the margins in the Senate and the governor's race. Marshall, let's talk CD8.
We've got the results here. You see them on the screen there. They're going to kind of duplicate when we look at the map. It's pretty much split. Adams County below, Weld County here, and a sliver of Larimer County that is not, might be not reporting yet. So let's look at the total first. Yadira Caraveo leading by 4,000 votes. We knew this was going to be a close race. Now let's break it down by county. Weld County is going currently to Barb Kirkmeyer by almost 10,000 votes. And I'm looking up the voter registration in Weld County, which the Republicans have an advantage by about 14,000. So with 14,000 more Republican voters in Weld County, Kirkmeyer is currently leading by 10,000 in that specific county. Now let's look at Adams County. Yadira Caraveo is leading Adams County by almost 14,000. And in Adams County, The Democrats have the edge in voter registration by about 29,000 voters. So she has almost half of that currently. I'm trying to do math in my head. This is why I'm not a pollster. But I know Barb Kirkmeyer is close to 100. She's closer to 100% of the voter registration difference by leading by 10,000 when there's a 14,000 difference with Republicans having the edge compared to Caraveo leading by almost 14,000 when there's a 29,000 voter edge. And when we look at the total so far, again, just 4,000 different. Am I thinking about, David, I want to bring you in because am I thinking about this appropriately when I'm trying to figure out, okay, we know there are more Republican voters in Weld, we know there's more Democratic voters in Adams, and if I'm looking at the percentages this way, first, am I looking at it right, and can we tell anything from this?
You are, absolutely, Marshall. And honestly, what Barb Kirkmeyer's campaign is counting on right now is those late Republican votes that were cast today are going to carry the day as the night goes on, without question. And the Caraveo campaign, at the same time, is hoping that, because with all due respect, younger voters will always tend to vote later and closer to Election Day. That still holds true. Just in all honesty, looking at the data this morning, you still had a very large number of senior citizens, 65 and older, leading in those early vote totals. And historically, younger voters, 18 to 34-year-olds, have voted in, and their percentage will grow over time going into the next day. So that's what I believe, or what I would assume the Caraveo campaign is hoping for, is that they're going to get that surge of younger voters to carry them through and maintain that slim lead. The Kirkmeyer campaign's looking at it the other way, where it is, we have a lot of those voters that were told, hold on to those ballots, and they're going to come through it at the end of the day.
I just want to show one more thing, because I keep forgetting I have this ability. There is a third-party candidate.
That's no joke. I mean, 5,700 votes is no joke.
Because the difference is 4,003. Now, that's always the common thinking. Well, if this third-party candidate wasn't there, the votes, you know, who knows who they'd be voting for. But there's also the idea, and it's not really in CD8, but the protest vote. We heard about that in the governor's race, or the Republican for U.S. Senate. There was, oh, he's not Republican enough, protest with a different candidate. We have not heard that in CD8. But the third-party Libertarian candidate taking 5,700 votes, that could be significant. This is why I have this ability to say at the end of the night, well, man, if that third-party candidate wasn't there, maybe we'd be talking about a different story.
Marshall, show us that Libertarian number again, and I'm going to refer to some research that was done this week by a Colorado News Source, or Colorado Newsline, pardon me, Colorado Newsline. They cover politics here in the state, and they went back through and looked at the top-performing third-party candidates in all of Colorado's major races back to 1960, and they only found one that eclipsed 4% of the vote, and that was Tom Tancredo. That was back in 2010 when he ran on the American Constitution Party line, when the Republican ticket was in shambles for governor. Tank got something like 35, 36% of the vote in 2010. It's super rare for a third-party candidate to get over 2-3%. There you've got Richard Ward rounding up to 4% of the vote. If that percentage holds for him, he would become the second highest performing third-party candidate in Colorado since 1950, eclipsing Lily Tang Williams in 2016. She's a Libertarian candidate in a race for Senate. But that's a very sizable Libertarian percentage if that holds up.
And the candidate is taking 2,100 votes, I'm just going to say it, taking 2,100 votes from Weld County, which would most likely benefit Kirkmeyer, and in Adams County, 3,600 votes, so more performance in Adams County, where Yadira Caraveo thought she needs to do best to win. So I'm going to keep an eye on this third party that may be the spoiler in CD8, as the Republicans thought that might be their best shot of winning one major seat in Colorado.
That is wild stuff. All right, Marshall, thank you. It sounds like Democratic Governor Jared Polis may be speaking shortly at the Democratic Watch Party. What we had previously heard from his campaign tonight is that they were waiting on the Associated Press to make a call in the race. The way that this works for folks who don't do this every couple of years is the individual networks, the TV networks, are generally a lot more aggressive about calling these races. So you'll see NBC, ABC, CBS, CNN, Fox call stuff first. And Associated Press, the wire service, tends to be more conservative, as in careful, as in slower in calling races. And it sounded like the Polis team wanted to wait on the Associated Press to make the call. My colleague Alex Lewis is out there at the Democratic victory party. We can call it that, Alex, because it sounds like they're going to have some victories tonight.
Absolutely. We just checked in with Polis's campaign not 5 minutes ago, and they said, hey, we're not going to call this thing until the AP says it's so, and we weren't going to hear from him until then. About 20 seconds ago, Governor Polis has just
good evening, Colorado.
On the stage. We're expecting to hear
I just
from
want to let you know that the race has officially been called for governor of Colorado. And we're here to say thank you, Colorado.
I'm having some IFB
Governor
issues. I don't know
Polis
if you
and
can
I
hear
are
me,
so
but we are
proud to
expecting
call
Governor
Colorado
Polis
our home.
to claim
It's hard to
victory
believe
and
it was
talk to
just
his
4
constituents
years
any
ago
moment now.
that the people put their trust in Governor Polis and me to lead this incredible state. I'm proud of the progress that we've made together and proud of how the Polis Primavera administration has put the needs of Coloradoans above all else every step of the way. We came into the office with a bold, positive vision, and together we have made real progress delivering on that vision. Seeing our governor in action over the past 4 years, I've seen firsthand that he's smart, he's caring and determined leader who's serious about problem solving. He's exactly who we need in this moment to lead us to brighter days ahead. And tonight, we see clearly that the people of Colorado agree. Colorado, we couldn't be more thankful for trusting in us to keep getting the job done for 4 more years. So I want to take a moment to thank the amazing campaign staff and volunteers who knocked on every last door, texted every last voter, and planned incredible events all across Colorado. So please give them a round of applause.
That is Lieutenant Governor Diane Primavera there speaking and thanking campaign staff. We'll make sure that you're able to listen in live as soon as the governor begins to speak. Lieutenant Governor has not had a particularly high profile throughout Polis's first term in office. She's held the lieutenant governor's job where she fills in for the governor when he's out of state, represents him on a number of occasions, and she also has pulled double duty as the head of the governor's office for, what is it, saving people money. It works on healthcare policy mainly, but those have been her roles within the Polis administration. It's up to each governor and lieutenant governor to decide on their own roles and responsibilities within an administration. The Associated Press has not made the call at this point in the Colorado governor's race, but it appears that the Polis campaign is feeling confident enough with this margin that they're willing to have him come to the podium if he's up there standing to the left of Lieutenant Governor Primavera. Let's listen in. This is Democratic Governor Jared Polis, reelected to a second term.
Is a place where we truly value decency and hard work, where we fight for our freedoms and we strive to ensure that every single person has the opportunity to succeed and get ahead. Truly a Colorado for all, where there's room and a place for everybody to be themselves. I'd like to thank my opponents, Heidi Ganahl, Daniel Neuschwanger, all of the candidates who hard-fought races and brought forward their ideas. Now we must all come together to move Colorado forward. I'm so deeply honored that the people of Colorado have chosen to share in my belief that Colorado's best days are still ahead. As we plan for what's next, we draw from the lessons that got us to this outcome tonight. The fact is, we did something simple. We focused on issues that really affect people's lives, and we delivered real results. We focused on lowering costs and more freedom. We led with rational, data-driven COVID policies that supported personal freedom and responsibility and resulted in Colorado having the 9th lowest COVID death rate in the entire nation. We created free full-day kindergarten and universal preschool, which launches next fall. Not only important for every child, regardless of their background or where they live or who they are, to get a strong start, but it also saves families $5,000 a year, and that's what folks need right now. We got major commitments on getting to 80% renewable energy by 2030, and we're on track for 100% renewable energy by 2040 in the great state of Colorado. We delivered on the largest property tax cut for homeowners and businesses in the history of Colorado and 2 cuts to the state income tax. And we've also ended state taxes on Social Security income, ended sales tax on diapers, and we did a lot more to save people money. In fact, for my State of the State address, I sang 50 ways to save you money with credit to Paul Simon. We delivered over 100 ways to save you money, and we are hard at work to get even more done soon. And in many ways, most importantly, we've protected people's freedom, something we celebrate in Colorado. Free to love who you love, free to decide your own family's future in our amazing great state of Colorado, and a Colorado for all. Because in Colorado, we offer something truly special. The idea that your choices belong to you and no one else. Our solutions are never based on whether they come from the left or the right or the middle or up or down, but whether they solve problems and make life better for Coloradans. And we celebrate good ideas from all perspectives to save people money and make our state an even more amazing place. I think about KUSA from Commerce City, who can finally stop rationing her life-saving medication because of Colorado's historic cap on the cost of out-of-pocket insulin. Or Julie and Erin, like so many parents, who are saving thousands.
We're about to bring in the folks who are watching 9 News.
Full-day kindergarten for every child.
Good evening. NBC News is projecting that Colorado's Democratic Senator Michael Bennett has been reelected to another 6-year term, defeating Republican challenger Joe O'Dea. The margin, with just more than 1 million votes counted, is a whopping 18%, which is a significantly larger lead for Bennett than any of the polls suggested. But NBC News is comfortable that when all is said and done tonight, Michael Bennett is headed back to the United States Senate. NBC News is also projecting that Democratic Governor Jared Polis has defeated his Republican challenger Heidi Ganahl by another wide margin. Governor Polis took to the podium just a moment ago for an acceptance speech.
The fact is, we did something simple. We focused on issues that really affect people's lives, and we delivered real results.
What we are looking at tonight, regardless of national results and how positive they may look for the Republican Party, is that the 2 big prizes in Colorado will be outside the reach of a state party that has not had a significant win since 2014. We're bringing 9 News political reporter Marshall Zellinger to look at these 2 races, governor and Senate, both looking like blowouts at this early point.
I mean, we're still waiting for El Paso County, which is going to bump up the Republican numbers a bit, and some of these other white counties that haven't reported will lean toward Republican. But the metro area, as I zoom in here, you can just see all blue. Jared Polis easily winning there. As I show the Senate race, Joe O'Dea did better than Heidi Ganahl. You can see a little bit more red when we pull out the map. It's still the same story, though. Who's going to be the next Republican candidate that's going to try to take out a Democrat that has wide support in Colorado?
Feel free to join us for our live continuing Colorado election results and analysis on KTVD Channel 20, also streaming on 9 News Plus, and you can find us on 9news.com as well. Welcome back, friends. So, perhaps you are wondering what in the world is going on in this fine evening on Colorado's western slope. That's a race that had been largely written off by many folks watching Colorado politics and national politics, as Republican Congresswoman Lauren Bobert, quite the controversial creature in politics these days, is in a safe Republican seat. But Democrats have had some hope that the Democratic challenger, Adam Frisch, formerly of Aspen City Council, might be able to make a race out of it, despite the fact that the district is more Republican-leaning than it was when Bobert won it 2 years ago to go to Washington to begin her flame-throwing career. Well, things look interesting in the early going from Colorado's 3rd Congressional District. Marshall, what are you seeing?
Well, I don't have a cool map, so I'm going to use the Secretary of State map for this. And I hate to direct from the floor here, but Lawrence, this is probably going to look best if it's taken full because there's a lot of lighter color that's probably not going to show so well. But and I'm going to have David chime in on some of this. Overall, right now, Adam Frisch, the opponent to Lauren Boebert, is ahead by, my quick math is 7,000 votes, 52% to 47%, which is on the bottom of the screen. I'm going to bring it up just there. But Pueblo County is not reporting anything yet. It's this one that I'm clicking on right there. No results right now. And that's going to be significant. That swayed it. I mean, Pueblo is about 50-50, but they have been leaning Republican lately. I'm going to show Mesa County. Again, I wish this was better for TV purposes, but I can zoom in here and you can see in a Republican stronghold of Mesa County, Lauren Boebert has the lead there by just a little more than 5,000 votes. But I want to bring in David for some analysis on what we're looking at with the color of the map here with the blue and the red counties. David,
Mesa, without question, Marshall, is stunning. The fact that the Democratic candidate in Mesa County is the Republican anchor in the 3rd Congressional District. Pueblo has many conservative Democrats. However, Lauren Boebert's margin needs to be much stronger over in Mesa County, without question. Now, recently in Grand Junction, which is the largest population center in Mesa County, Democrats have actually made some gains on that city council there. But for a federal race and for the very, well-known image of Lauren Boebert, what she stands for in representing people in the 3rd, for being literally a national figure, this is absolutely the biggest shock of the evening, in my opinion, where she's only leading her, the major county where Republicans should be coming home to her by only 5,000 votes. And when Pueblo comes in, yes, Donald Trump did carry that county, even though it leans Democrat in 2016. However, it'll be very interesting to see when Pueblo comes in.
I always like to focus on where someone's from. As I click on Rifle in Garfield County, Adam Frisch is taking that by 3,300 votes in the county where the representative lives. And I always think that's telling. And perhaps it's not, but it's certainly something that stands out to me.
I think she lost it 2 years ago. I think that she lost her home county 2 years ago. I'm pretty sure, or at least
it was pretty close. At least, yeah.
Yeah. She had trouble there before. I'd love for us to spend a little bit more time on this because this is such a surprising situation that's developing in Colorado's 3rd Congressional District. And maybe, David, you can give us some insight here. So when folks have been asking us about the chances that Boebert would be unseated, the thing that has been difficult for us to separate is Democrats' hopes from electoral reality. And you see this play out in races all across the country where Republicans do this too, but Democrats do this to a fault, where they will pour good money after bad into a race because they either so dislike the person who's running on the Republican side or they so love the Democrat in the race. You see this in Texas, where Beto O'Rourke, running for governor, has raised a ton of money and is way down in the polls. Georgia, Stacey Abrams raises a ton of money and is way down in the polls. And when I saw Adam Frisch raising money hand over fist to oppose Lauren Boebert, I read that more as these are the hopes and dreams of Democrats across the country as opposed to a realistic shot to unseat her.
You could not be more accurate about that, Kyle. In 2020, you had U.S. Senate candidates running in southern conservative states such as South Carolina, where these candidates were raising $20 million a quarter. And you're absolutely right. This is very, very accurate perception where Adam Frisch was raising national Democrat dollars. However, the math didn't look like it added up. We've never seen any chinks in the armor, if you will, of a Trump-like populist candidate like Lauren Boebert on the 3rd since she unseated former Republican, in the primary, Scott Tipton. This is really stunning, where for the first time, perhaps you actually may see that not only voters tiring perhaps of her style and what she is all about, but this is really amazing. But you're absolutely right, Kyle. 2020 could not have been more of an example of huge sums of money going into Senate candidate races across the country that really Democrats had very little chance of winning.
That becomes the national headline out of Colorado if the current stance of the 3rd Congressional District holds and Adam Frisch upsets Lauren Boebert. That becomes an instant national story because of her national profile. Bear in mind, in her first interview with a mainstream news outlet after announcing her candidacy, I guess this would have been about 3 years ago on 9 News, when we asked her, why do you want to go to Washington? She said, I want to go to Washington to fight with AOC. Mm-hmm. not to govern. She was very clear about the fact that she was not interested in governing. She wanted to go to become a political celebrity. And she has become that, I would say, even beyond her wildest dreams. She has become one of the preeminent far-right celebrities in Washington, D.C. And it's a real shocker that folks in her district may have tired of it after 2 years. I think there's a lot of folks who live in blue urban areas in Denver who don't get why she resonates with people, but you go out there, you talk to folks, and there are a lot of Republicans and there are a lot of conservative-leaning independents who love her shtick. They love what she does. And the question was just, would there be enough disaffected people to join the Democratic minority and give her a real race? And holy cow, it looks like it's happening tonight. All right, hey, I want to get out to Sedalia, the center of Colorado politics, where Heidi Ganahl is having her secondary party tonight. Mark Salinger is there. And Mark, it appears that some information has kind of pierced the Fox News bubble there at the party.
Yeah, Kyle, you can tell, I guess, first and foremost by the music that's playing. Behind me, there used to be some two-steps and swing dancing going on with a live band playing. Right now, it's slowed down, and there's a couple people slow dancing as the news comes across that Heidi Ganahl is most likely not going to win this race, as most people here thought that she would. They got on the microphones from the very beginning tonight and called this a victory party, though we have not yet seen Heidi Ganahl, or as at this point we still think that she's coming, but we have not been told for sure that she is coming. We were told that she would be here sometime around 8:15. It's around that time right now, and right now, at least in the bar area, it's a pretty somber mood right now. Right when they switched the screens to the local news to show that Heidi Ganahl had lost this race, there was a man on the microphone who we don't know, he wasn't affiliated with the campaign, who goes, "Governor Polis, he hasn't won, expletive. They still need to count El Paso County." That's what he said to some cheers here at the bar. But other than that, it's been mostly booze and some somber faces here so far in Sedalia, Kyle.
The expletive, that's what comes out of the east end of a bull facing west. Is that what we're referring to there? Hasn't won expletive?
You nailed it.
Okay,
yes.
Very good. I just want to make sure. I don't know, on Channel 20, can we swear on Channel? I don't know if we can swear on Channel.
I'm just being careful, but that is what was said tonight.
Yep, no, we can't swear. That was a good catch by Marshall Zellinger, who knows those FCC regs inside and out. All right, Mark Salinger, thank you very much. What an interesting night we've had, and it's only an hour in. Don't make me laugh. We just didn't expect it to come this fast and furious and to just be this wild early. Let's bring in 9 News political analyst, Republican Kelly Maher, and our Democratic voice tonight, State Senator Dominic Moreno. Or do we have them? Yes, no, maybe? Hey, how about it?
How are you, Kyle?
So, based on what we are seeing tonight, governor's race, Senate race, either results surprising? Kelly?
You know, not particularly. I think that we expected that on both fronts. I think the question is, what does that mean down ballot? What does that mean in the state Senate? What does that mean in the state House? And those 3 races, Treasurer, Secretary of State, and Attorney General. Senator
Moreno, any surprise in these early calls?
No surprises at all. I'll just say that it's a good night to be a Democrat in Colorado. It looks like we're on track to win all of the high-profile races that we were hopefully expecting to win. The state Senate's looking in good shape. I know that Republicans had hopes that they might be able to reclaim that chamber, but it's looking good for us, so it's a good night for us.
Kelly, give me a scenario where Joe O'Dea and Heidi Ganahl lose their shorts, but yet there are statewide Republican winners tonight. AG's race, treasurer, that kind of thing. Can that happen?
You know, I mean, ultimately we have seen in the past that we have seen governors who have gone Democrat where we've gotten those, what I call the lesser 3 races, right? We've seen it historically, often actually over the last 20 years. Seems unlikely. I mean, I think the real story tonight is that my read off of that speech is that Jared Polis is running for president, and he spent a bunch of money down ticket in order to drive up the score, in order for this to be the national narrative that the wave stopped here in Colorado.
So, can we talk about this Bobert race for a second? If this holds, this has caught a lot of people, myself included, napping, that thought that what we were seeing out there was, you know, what do they call it, Democratic hopium versus reality. Senator Moreno, did you entertain the possibility that Lauren Boebert could lose tonight?
Honestly, not in my wildest dreams. Like, this is shocking, and if these results hold, it will be a major upset. But honestly, will probably mean that Colorado's reputation will improve dramatically on the national stage if Congresswoman Boebert does not get reelected.
Kelly, I got to ask you, with the fact that Joe O'Dea is not going to the U.S. Senate, that was an opportunity for more moderate Republicans to have a new face of the party in Colorado. The face of the Republican Party, like it or not, is Lauren Boebert right now. If she were to lose tonight, even if it's a difficult night for the GOP across the board, are there going to be more centrist Republicans who see it as the opportunity for a fresh start? Or was it, well, geez, we at least had her, and now that star could be extinguished?
I mean, that's a great question, Kyle, but ultimately what I think we'll see is what we've seen in the past, which is those on one side of the party will say, oh gosh, it's the rhinos, and if only you would run more conservative candidates, people would vote for you. And those who are centrists will say, oh gosh, it's those people who are on like one wing of the party, and they're the ones that are causing the losses. And I think what you'll see is the same finger pointing that we've continuously seen. Unfortunately, I hope ultimately that there's somebody who can emerge, who can pull people together. I was really hoping that Joe O'Dea could be that guy, but it's not looking like it.
It's just, it's such a fascinating thing to watch what is happening on the Western Slope. Another note, the Associated Press has just confirmed NBC News' call of the U.S. Senate race for Bennett over O'Dea. Again, AP, the more conservative, slower, more careful call. So they're now saying that the Senate race is done as well. But for folks who have not closely followed the life cycle of the 3rd Congressional District over the last 2 years, as Boebert has vaulted to national stardom and spent a whole lot of time out of state, down at Mar-a-Lago with Trump, and here, there, and everywhere doing the Republican Star Tour, there has been some pocket of anger amongst some moderate Republicans, maybe even some conservatives, that that's not what they want their member of Congress to do. That anger was embodied in the Republican primary by State Senator Don Coram, who got trounced by Boebert in the Republican primary. And we know that there was not an insignificant number of Democrats who switched to unaffiliated so that they could vote for Don Coram with the hopes of unseating Lauren Boebert. And I think a lot of people, and I put myself in this camp, that when she dispatched Don Coram with great ease in the Republican primary, that we took that as, well, there's the Republican vote of confidence in what Lauren Boebert is doing. But again, just cannot tell you what a seismic shift that would be if a Democrat wins the 3rd Congressional District. Alex Lewis is down at Democratic headquarters about to speak with the re-elected governor. Alex?
Hey, Kyle. Welcome, re-elected Governor Polis. How do you feel?
I'm excited because I love this job. I love Colorado. It's been an amazing opportunity to serve the last 4 years, and I'm ready to roll my sleeves and get to work to make Colorado an even better place.
In your victory speech here today, we'll call it that, you talked a lot about Coloradans' best days are ahead of us. What does that mean for you as you get to work at the state capitol?
I really focus on protecting our freedom and lowering taxes and costs. And we need to do more, right? We're building on our track record. Free preschool and kindergarten for every child, saving families thousands of dollars a year and giving kids a strong start, right? Ending state taxes on Social Security income. But we know we need to do more. We need to make sure we can have more opportunities for people to live with housing that they can afford, for rental and for purchase, near where jobs are. And we need to do more to make Colorado safer. And we're focused with our goal of making Colorado one of the 10 safest states over the next 5 years.
And you talk about the cost of living here in this state and inflation. When it comes to those who came to the polls and voted for you, and frankly those who didn't, what are the campaign promises you think Coloradans are most looking for you to deliver on, and right away?
Well, whether people voted for me, voted for one of my opponents, or didn't even vote at all, they should know that I work for them. And I'm ready to roll up my sleeves and get to work. I'll always do what's right for Colorado. And yes, we need to do more as a state to reduce costs and save people money, to make sure our economy can thrive, to make our schools the best in the nation, and to make our streets safer.
A lot of hugs around your family on stage. You got a little emotional too when you talked about Coloradans having trust in you. How do you feel about that tonight?
I'm just so humbled. I mean, to think that the people of Colorado placed their trust in me 4 years ago. We've been through some tough times. The 3 largest wildfires in the history of our state, the most destructive fire 10 months ago, global pandemic, global economic uncertainty. But through it all, I did my best to look at data, make informed decisions every day, pragmatic approach, and I'm looking forward to bringing that same background and focus to make Colorado an even more amazing place over the next 4 years.
Any final thoughts tonight as you wake up tomorrow in your second term?
I love Colorado.
Thank you.
The double
All right,
peace
Kyle, we're gonna toss
signs
it back
from
to
the
you in the
governor to wrap it up. A happy man, and I think a lot of folks are going to say the Jared Polis for president bandwagon is going to get a few more people on board after tonight's result. And now the question becomes, does Joe Biden want another go of this in 2024? We have a new projection from NBC News. The Democratic Secretary of State, Jenna Griswold, will defeat her Republican challenger, Pam Anderson, currently a 13-point margin in that race. While not the most talked about race in Colorado, for my money, it was one of the most interesting, because you have Republican Pam Anderson, who's one of the loudest voices against election denialism within her own party, who fended off Colorado's most prominent election denier, Mesa County Clerk Tina Peters, indicted Mesa County Clerk Tina Peters in the Republican primary, to go on to face Griswold, who cast aspersions in Anderson's direction that she actually was in bed with extremists and that, you know, she might roll back voting rights and that kind of thing, which was all, as the guy said on the stage there in Sedalia, horse excrement. But Griswold is a fundraising powerhouse with a story to tell about Colorado's election systems, and she's ridden it to a win tonight. Marshall?
This race is closer than the governor's race and closer than the Senate race, and it's not even close. Currently, 13 points separate Jenna Griswold, Pam Anderson. You can see it's 184,000. I'll take you through the cycle. The Senate is different by 200 some odd thousand. Governor's race, 279,000, and here at Secretary of State, Pam Anderson has the closest gap of those 3 races, and Attorney General is actually even closer than that. I want to look at the big picture real quickly. Mesa County, which, you know, Tina Peters' country, they voted for Pam Anderson here, and Griswold was 12 points behind in Mesa County. El Paso County, kind of even closer with 8 points, not even 8 points there, with Griswold making up the difference in a place where you'd think a Republican would just roll. And then I'm going to zoom in on the metro area counties that are blue. This is going to be what you're going to see for the most part. And then Douglas County, compared to what we saw with the governor's race, this is currently red for Anderson. But in the end, it's not going to matter. I guess there's some solace in saying, hey, this was the closest race out of all of them until we look at the Attorney General's race, which John Kellner maybe is going to have props out of this, because it's like if everyone's getting blown out, who was blown out the least? Currently, an 11-point spread between Phil Weiser and John Kellner, and I'm hearing NBC is now calling the race that we're looking at now, Phil Weiser reelected as Attorney General.
Goodness. It is 8:17 p.m. in Colorado, and Republicans are forced to play a game of who is the smallest loser. That is astonishing in what was expected to be such a positive year for Republicans nationwide and raised such hopes among Colorado Republicans. They're now sitting around putting limes in their beers or ice in their beer if they're Joe O'Dea, trying to figure out if somebody can get a race into single digits.
It may be this one.
It could be that one, and certainly there's still the race in Colorado's 8th Congressional District, where at last check, Yadira Caraveo, the Democrat, held a slight lead over Republican Barb Kirkmeyer. That's currently holding up at a 3 percentage point lead. But this was a race down the home stretch that Republicans thought that they would win. They knew it would be close, but they thought that they were going to win this race. This is some wild stuff that we're seeing.
Yeah, and we haven't talked about it yet, and I'll bring it up on the map, is the balance of power. Well, if there's one saving grace for the Republicans, it would have been the state Senate. Split the legislature, take some power away from Governor Polis if he's reelected, which he is. But if you have a split legislature, you can't go for the Democratic wish list because you have checks and balances, because it has to pass both the House and the Senate. So let's look at our balance of power. This is how the day started in the Senate. Half of the seats are up for re-election. So that leaves us 12 Democrats, including Senator Moreno, who's here, that I want to hopefully talk about with this. He's one of the blue dots already colored in. He's got 2 more years in his term. 12 Democrats, 6 Republicans. I've looked at the list, and here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to color in the races that I know that we can call. There are 4 Republican seats that are won, and the Democrats, you want to get to 18 to have power in the Senate. And I look at 5 races that I can look at right now and say the Democrats have won. I looked it over with Kelly Maher and Senator Moreno, and they agree on this. So the Democrats just need 1 more seat to hold on to power in the state Senate, 2 more seats to make a possible recall of State Senator Kevin Priola, who switched from Republican to Democrat. 2 more seats makes that moot. Because are you going to spend money on a recall effort that's not going to give you the power in the end? So where we're at right now is 1 more seat waiting to be called for the Democrats to give them power again, 2 more seats to make it almost a blue wave in Colorado. Somehow, something got put up on the border of Colorado, and what's happening nationally is just not showing up in Colorado.
It's really something to see, and I'm going to ask our producer extraordinaire, Mallory, if I'm able to talk to Senator Moreno and Kelly again, because I would love to bring them in to chat about something as we watch this kind of coalesce. Is that possible? May I talk to them? I would love to talk to them, and I can. Thank you. Hi there. Tell me this. Republican wave year nationwide, and Democrats smoke Republicans like brisket in Colorado. How can this be a purple state? Can you make a convincing case that this is a purple state based on what we have seen here this year? And I know that Kelly wants to answer this question first.
You know, Kyle, I think that's a really, really hard case to make. Obviously, it's literally my job to do so, so I will do my best, which is if you're talking about a red wave, right, like the tide was already exceptionally low here in Colorado. And so of the Senate races, the 7 state Senate races that Republicans thought we had a chance with, every single one of them went heavily in some cases and at least marginally for President Biden. So, you know, ultimately when the numbers end up filtering out, ultimately we could see that the senators outperformed President Biden. So maybe the wave got like marginally a few inches higher on the dike. Possibly not, though.
I feel like you really gave that your best shot.
I did. Thank you.
We appreciate
that was what I had.
Effort above everything else here. So, Senator Moreno, I'm not going to ask you the same question because I know it is, you know, in Democrats' interest to say, oh no, it's a purple state, it's competitive, got to get out there and fight for every vote. No. Don't rest on our laurels, you know, don't believe that this is a blue state. But this appears to be a state transformed from 10 years ago.
Yeah, I would say, Kyle, I think you're exactly right. This is a transformation. We have seen Colorado's population boom in recent years, and it seems that most of those newcomers to our state are voting the Democratic ticket. And so I think less and less Colorado is that purple state that we have known it to be. The one thing, and to help out my friend Kelly here, that to really say, like, you know, that this could possibly still be a purple state is on those fiscal issues. You do see a ballot initiative on the ballot right now that will reduce the state income tax, right? So on those fiscal issues, Republicans still win on those in Colorado somehow. But where Democratic candidates are concerned, the choice is clear among Colorado voters.
We've got a couple of minutes here before we're going to rejoin our friends who are watching national news coverage on NBC. I'd like to stick with Senator Moreno and Kelly if we could. So the choice, if it was not already apparent for the Colorado GOP, and Kelly, you and I have talked about this going back years on the air, so this is no surprise. The question is, evolve to compete or say these are our principles, win or lose? You know, and we've seen the way that this can go in states like California, where the Republican Party is a non-factor. What do you think that conversation is going to be like within the Colorado Republican Party in this new landscape?
That's a great question, Kyle. I mean, but California actually right now has this LA mayoral race where you have like the Democrat and the like not real Democrat, right? And you have Katy Perry and AC Slater from Saved by the Bell voting for basically like the Republican-y version of the Democrat and posting that on social media. So I think ultimately maybe the thing is that you just have to like lose enough that people coalesce together and try to start talking about the actual principles, right? So, I mean, maybe we're there, but also it is early. Let's see how things continue. And for your question earlier, I came up with a different answer that I like better.
Oh yeah, go do it.
Okay, which is the Bobert question, right? So she loses, who becomes the face of the party? If she loses and Barb Kirkmeyer wins, I think that becomes a super interesting juxtaposition. And I also think then that becomes kind of a bellwether for Republicans because, look, Kirkmeyer is no, quote, rhino, right? Like, she's very fastidiously conservative, but she's also not mean about it. And I think that then that gives a path for Republicans moving forward.
I give you enormous credit because you again reached toward the straws and you got a firm grasp on one that time. But no, the point you make is exactly correct, in which if Barb Kirkmeyer wins, and she currently is trailing by a couple of points, then she would become the most prominent elected Republican in Colorado. And she's no centrist. As Kelly said, she's a staunch conservative who always has been and is willing to talk about her views in that way. So maybe she becomes a guidepost for the Colorado Republican Party going forward. As the question becomes, how many more Barb Kirkmeyers are there and can they win out there? We're about to welcome in all the folks watching on 9 News so we can talk about Lauren Boebert's race. There is a potential upset coming out of western Colorado that would become national news if current results hold. Republican Congresswoman Lauren Boebert, for all of her far-right fame, is losing by 6 points to Democrat Adam Frisch in Colorado's 3rd Congressional District. To call this an upset is an understatement. This is a district that is significantly more Republican than when Bobert won it 2 years ago and became one of the most prodigious fundraisers in Congress based on her flame-throwing style of politics. Want to bring in 9 News political reporter Marshall Zellinger now to talk about more of what we are seeing. And this is a race that even Colorado's political observers did not think would be in play.
No, because I think it was +7 Republican voter registration after redistricting. This is the new district. It looks a little bit different than it did 2 years ago. Mesa County, Grand Junction, red in favor of Congresswoman Bobert. But Pueblo, as I learned from working in Colorado, it just refreshed in real time. As I learned from working in Colorado Springs in Pueblo, as Pueblo goes in Congressional District 3, so goes the entire district, and now it's blue, leading right now. Adam Frisch is the opponent, and perhaps it's because Pueblo is leaning blue this time, but it really is amazing to see the amount of blue, or maybe just not as much red in the red areas that Bobert thought she had. This is just, I did not expect this, I can tell you that, Kyle.
Let's take a live look onto the western slope. This is Lauren Boebert's victory party, which asterisk may or may not include victory, but it includes an American flag and some guys playing guitar between now and then. That becomes the race to watch. If she's unseated, it's national news. Our local coverage continues on Channel 20 KTVD. Everybody watching 9 News just found out what you knew a long time ago, that Lauren Boebert's got a real race on her hands tonight, and what appears to be a widening edge for the man she derisively called Aspen Adam. It's always a good technique, which is to make fun of entire places that you represent. I mean, you see it happen also on the statewide level. People make fun of Denver, Boulder, Axis, that kind of thing. But wow, what a shocker that would be tonight if Lauren Boebert becomes a one-term Congresswoman from Colorado. Joe O'Dea is conceding at the podium in Greenwood Village. Let's listen.
has not come to the podium yet, Kyle. We're still waiting for Joe O'Dea. I do have a readout just from the concession call between Joe O'Dea and Michael Bennett. I'm told that he congratulated Senator Bennett on winning this race, asked that Senator Bennett embrace some of the themes that he talked about on the campaign trail, including reaching across the aisle on a night when Democrats really seemed to be dominating the state of Colorado, and that Joe O'Dea specifically brought up immigration reform in that call. We were told about 15 minutes ago that we would see Joe O'Dea here on the stage relatively soon. I should tell you that within the last maybe 3 minutes, there has been a massive crowd that has come out kind of here. This floor has been empty all night long. Even during a band playing, the one cheer that we have heard inside this ballroom was when Fox News spoke about Herschel Walker's race, and at the time, Herschel Walker had a slight edge in that race, and it was the first bit of emotion I heard from this room. It has been quiet all night, including some dead stares at Fox News when Fox made the call that Michael Bennett beat Joe O'Dea in this race here. One thing that we are missing, we have not seen Heidi Ganahl emerge. I've reached out to the campaign just to see if she's still here at this watch party. She's going between two different celebrations, or two different parties, I should say. One here in Greenwood Village, the other in Sedalia. She had told her supporters at the time that she was supposed to be there at 8:15. We have not seen her in this ballroom yet. Also notably, we tried to reach out to the head of the Colorado Republican Party to talk about some of the results that are coming in. She wasn't ready to talk quite yet, but a lot of interest here now as more people are making their way, hoping to hear from Joe O'Dea, who again just conceded to Michael Bennett. Kyle.
Steve, I feel poorly about this because you and I had a conversation ahead of Election Day as you were figuring out what your assignment was going to be tonight, and I said, well, if they would let me out of the studio, I would want to be at the Republican Victory Party, because either way, it's a fascinating story. Either the party has climbed back from its lowest depths since pre-World War II and a big bounce night for the GOP nationwide, at which point you're in the middle of the biggest party in the state, or there's some kind of shocking development and they're still wallowing in the pit at the end of the night. I did not expect this. Never in our conversations did I expect that Republicans would get blown out from stem to stern, and they might not even have Lauren Boebert to hold on to by the end of the night.
I think the one thing that people here are still holding on to is the 8th Congressional District. That is the one race that I have heard squarely from everyone I've talked to around here, is the one that they think Republicans have a certain shot in, though we haven't seen much about that race here. Again, the TVs have been on Fox National all night, where this group of people is really watching a lot of other people across the country in a similar situation celebrating, while they really have no victories yet to celebrate tonight.
Steve
yeah,
Sager.
Not as interesting as you sold to me.
I'm sorry, man. If it's any consolation, you'll still get paid for the day. I mean, yeah, no, don't worry about it, man. The check will clear. Okay. It just didn't turn out to be what we thought it was going to be. All right, Steve Stager, thank you. I want to bring in my colleague Chris Bianchi now, who helps us cover Colorado politics, standing by with pollster David Flaherty to break down more in depth what we're seeing tonight.
Yeah, and Kyle, I think the first thing we got to kind of take away here, obviously the story of the evening, we've been talking about it here. We're going to get into some of the propositions as well, but I think all eyes here on the 3rd Congressional District, David. What appears to be perhaps a surprise, the making here with Lauren Boebert in some obvious trouble. I guess the first obvious question here, David, is how surprising is this to you at this point?
It's a political earthquake. Nobody had this on their radar. And with all due respect, Lauren Boebert has millions of followers on Twitter. She has unlimited rivers of resources to hold on to this seat. She was perceived to be, the champion of liberty and freedom for Colorado. However, tonight what we're seeing is that, Adam Frisch really ran a good campaign, and clearly there are a lot of voters in the 3rd Congressional District that perhaps are not pleased with her first term, and nobody really picked this up. The fact that she's only won Mesa County so far by 5,000 votes is very underwhelming. She really needed a larger margin there. Now, granted, a lot of the strategy, a lot of Republicans voted today, and that's an important thing to understand. There should be a lot of Republican ballots out there, and that's what the Boebert campaign is really hoping for today, where Adam Frisch's campaign, they're looking to run out the clock. And then in between Pueblo and Mesa, the other counties that make up the 3rd Congressional District, you know, there's 15, 20,000 votes in there that they're scrapping for everyone.
And we'll get to more of that here in just a second, but Michael Bennett about to speak here, so let's go to Michael Bennett.
Treasurer's seat called, but I am absolutely sure he's going to come through. Brittany Pedersen in CD7. And I want you to give a round of applause to Ed Perlmutter for the amazing job he did serving this state. We're still waiting to see whether Yadira is going to win, but when I came down here, she was ahead in CD8. I hope she wins. I've been living in Adams County wanting her to win. And Weld County. Thank you. And she's doing well. She's doing well in Weld County. And then Adams ahead in the 3rd CD. Let me just say a few words since I have you here tonight. And what I want to tell you, thank you. Thank you. What I want to tell you is why we won this campaign in Colorado. And we won this campaign because we told the truth from the beginning to the end of this election. We said the same things in red parts of the state and blue parts of the state. In our primary and our general election, we told the truth. And we focused on the struggles of working people in this economy. And some of you have heard me say this a million times, but if I had to summarize my town halls in the time that I've been in the Senate, it's very easy to do it. And this was before we were dealing with the inflation we're dealing with now. It's families coming and saying, Michael, we are working incredibly hard. We're killing ourselves. And no matter what we do, we can't afford some combination of housing, of health care, of higher education or early childhood education we can't save. And this is the anecdotal reflection of an economy that for 40 years has worked really well for the top 10% of Americans and hasn't worked for anybody else. And this was not an accident. There's been a 40-year Washington consensus since Reagan basically was president that said we're going to privilege people in our society that want to make stuff as cheaply as possible in China or Southeast Asia over lots of other choices we could have made, like our own supply chains, like our national security, like being able to earn a decent wage in the United States of America. And as a result of those policies that Washington still has not corrected, as we stand here tonight, we have the worst income inequality that we've had in a century in the United States of America. We are the richest country in the world, and we have the 3rd highest rate of childhood poverty in the industrialized world. And I think that's unacceptable. I think that is unacceptable. We have to change that. That's why I was so glad when we included my enhanced child tax credit last year and passed it, and we cut childhood poverty in America almost in half last year. We cut hunger by a quarter. You know, and we've done some really important things that we've been fighting for a generation, like capping drug prices for seniors at $2,000, requiring Medicare to negotiate drug prices on behalf of the American people. Finally, and passing a climate and energy bill that's going to be able to reduce costs in this country. It's going to enhance our national security, and finally, we're going to drive emissions down. This country is now positioned to lead the entire world in this transition we have to make over the next 25 years, and Colorado is positioned to lead the country.
And you just heard from Michael Bennett winning his 3rd term as senator, the senior senator now from the state of Colorado, now joined by Colorado pollster David Flaherty. And David, I think Michael Bennett winning, Jared Polis winning, obviously a bit more surprising, but maybe here in Colorado, obviously the big story that seems to be looming is in the 3rd Congressional District, where Lauren Boebert appears to be trailing. David, I'm going to ask you to kind of crunch some numbers here. What are the individual campaigns looking for? What's Democrat and what are the two campaigns looking for? Are there enough votes there for Lauren Boebert to potentially pull this out?
There very well could be. I would not say this race is over just yet. The current results definitely say that this race is in reach for Adam Frisch and Democrats to have a really shocking pickup here. Lauren Boebert's campaign right now, they're hoping that there was a lot of last-minute votes that came in that Republicans decided to hold their ballots because of fraud, and they decided to say, hey, you know, I really hope there's a lot of votes in the bank to get there. Adam Frisch's campaign is really hoping that, you know, they can run out the clock. They're looking at county by county. How many votes are left? What's the highest watermark that turnout could have been county by county in this very large, you know, congressional district? But for right now, he's definitely in the game, and that's where they're sweating. This is what campaigns go through, whether you're up or down a little bit on election night. It's stressful. Nobody knows the answers. You're really relying, you're calling those county clerks, and we're just going to have to see what happens. But right now, it's the surprise, without question, of the evening in Colorado.
I guess the final numerical question I've got when it comes to Frisch and Boebert there in that 3rd congressional district, where are, based on what you've seen, where are the remaining votes? And again, do we see maybe one clump of votes potentially coming in that could favor one candidate or the other over the next few hours?
It's Mesa County, you know, and Pueblo County. Those are the two.
Grand Junction is Mesa County.
Yeah, yes, it is, exactly. It's those two counties where most of the action is. A lot of the other counties, you know, we're talking maybe no more than 10,000 votes cast or less. So there's not a lot of margin for Lauren Boebert to pick up. So it's not like, oh, I'm going to win this next batch of votes 90% to 10%. That's not going to happen. You're incrementally trying to climb your way back into this sort of thing where you're hoping that, you know, Lauren's campaign is hoping like I got 65% coming into this county. But it may only be a net vote of 500 votes. So that's what they're looking like. It's a lot of complicated math and
it's a difficult race, and we'll get more on this. But Kyle, I'm going to send things back over to you. Obviously, the big story of the evening.
We have a concession speech right now from Joe O'Dea, defeated in the Senate race.
David, thank you. It's been an incredibly rewarding journey, and we've made so many friends across this state. And we are very disappointed with tonight's results. So many people poured their hearts, their souls into this race. We all did. And the outcome is a tough pill to swallow. But that's life in the big city. We fought hard. We competed. We stayed true to our core and our beliefs and our values. And it didn't work out, not this time, but I don't have any regrets at all. And I want to congratulate Senator Bennett on his victory. I hope he'll lead into his commitments that he made during the campaign and work to move the nation forward out of this terrible rut, partisanship, and gridlock. The country's suffering, people are struggling, and our leaders need to elevate themselves to the great challenges of the day. I hope that Senator Bennett will use his seat for the good of this state. All 4 corners, Colorado matters. And again, thank you to my wife, family, for getting behind me day one of this campaign and always being in my camp. Thank you to the 4 horsemen that helped my finance committee and all the others that jumped in and did their part. We couldn't have done it without you. And thank you to all of Colorado for your love and your support. I look forward to better days. Don't look backwards, look forward. Colorado's a great state. We'll get some things done. It just may take us a little while. Thank you again for being here tonight. Appreciate it.
There it is, a short concession speech from Republican Senate candidate Joe O'Dea, saying, I hope Senator Bennett will use his seat for the good of this state, all 4 corners. That echoes, in softer tones, a prominent critique that O'Dea had of Bennett during the campaign, that he didn't leverage his seat to get more out of Democrats. Heidi Ganahl is conceding, at least we think she will. Let's listen.
I'm so sorry we couldn't pull this off. All right, I'm going to try and read this speech. All of you in this room know that I don't pull punches. I'm a straight shooter. so I won't do that now. This is very hard for all of us to see our state slip away from us right now. Tonight didn't go the way we had hoped for or prayed for, but that doesn't mean we give up. This I know. This movement is real. This mom on a mission is proud of the army of mad moms and dads and grandmas and granddads that have joined us. You all have a voice. Don't let tonight silence you. We're not going to give up the fight. Make sure those in power know decisions made in Denver boardrooms should really be made at the kitchen table by the people of Colorado. The tough choices parents must make to make ends meet are what our elected leaders should be guided by, not what unelected bureaucrats say is best. There is nothing conventional about our team. We had to fight the media, the pundits, the strategists, the dark money groups. Since day one, I've called our team Team Tenacity, and you are our team. And many of you know that our motto has been no stone left unturned. I am so proud of our campaign and all of you. There are so many people I want to thank. You got this, Heidi! To our volunteers and supporters who gave their time and talent and treasure and prayers for months, waving signs, attending rallies, making calls, knocking on doors, you are the backbone of this state. Thank you. To the voters who believed in our big, bold ideas to fix this state, I saw our movement grow one person at a time, standing up for our families, our businesses, our faith, and our freedom. Thank you. It's not over! To the conservative radio hosts, including Mandy, who's here, who carried our message when the mainstream media wasn't interested in covering what matters to hardworking Coloradans, thank you. To our campaign staff, led by Asa and Marcus and Lexi and all of my wonderful team, you worked tirelessly with a playbook that relied on passion and dedication to saving our state. Thank you to you all. And to my family, Jenna and Tori and Holly and Jack and Jason and my parents and Stephanie, you were there every step of the way, campaigning alongside me, pushing me to keep going, picking me up when I wasn't sure I had anything left in me. Thank you. To the governor, I wish him well. But please do not ignore the cry for help from so many in our state. You have a duty to all of Colorado, not just Denver and Boulder. The crime problem in Colorado is real. Record inflation is real. Education failures are real. Our kids cannot read, write. They're dying at record rates from fentanyl and suicide. This election may be passed tonight, but those problems are not. You need to be a governor for all of Colorado, not just those who agree with you. Families are struggling in our state. Business owners are tired of carrying the burden of unfunded, unsupported mandates. Rural Colorado feels left behind. It's hard to hear the cry for help when you flood the airwaves with your version of the truth, $28 million worth. Politics needs to be put aside. You need to be a governor for all of us. Colorado, I'm a fighter. And there's no stopping this mom on a mission, this mad mom. I'm not sure what my next chapter will be, but I can promise you this, I will never stop fighting for the American dream that I've been so blessed with. And I will never stop fighting for Colorado families. I will never stop fighting for our kids. I will never stop fighting for our freedom. I know Danny shares everything I'm saying, and Danny, I'm happy you want to say some words. I just want to thank all of you from the bottom of my heart and wish you all the best, and God bless you. God bless our state. I'm not going anywhere. Might take a few days off. Danny, come on up.
That is Heidi Ganahl's concession speech in the race for Colorado governor. She had an uphill climb from the start in her efforts to unseat a wealthy and popular incumbent Democrat. But it was a series of stumbles almost from the start that appeared to doom her campaign, from inability to answer basic questions from the launch of her campaign to an attempt to pick a lieutenant governor. The first guy backed out or got axed at the last minute, so then she went with election denier Danny Moore. And down the home stretch, as the race appeared to be out of her grasp, she turned to a series of conspiracy theories, from big tech censorship to children identifying as cats, and in the final days, thoughts about potential election integrity issues around Colorado. But with that, she exits the race, scolding Governor Polis, telling him that he needs to be a governor for all of us, and also saying that she is not going to give up the fight. There's obviously going to be a thirst within conservative circles in Colorado for Ganahl to play some role in the future of the conservative movement. But think back to 2 or 4 years ago when she was so highly touted as a centrist Republican, one of the only statewide elected Republican headed into this election, and thought to be perhaps their best hope for a high-profile race. She chose the biggest race of them all. She certainly could have run for something else if she chose. She wanted to run for governor, and it worked out pretty poorly from start to finish. So now Colorado Republicans are looking for a fresh face for the future. You would have to think that that is not going to be Joe O'Dea, who walked away temporarily from a very lucrative construction business to run for the Senate as an outsider. There was nothing in his concession speech that suggested that he wants another bite of the political apple. So the conundrum for Colorado Republicans tonight is really, who's next? You heard Kelly Maher, our Republican analyst, say earlier tonight that if Barb Kirkmeyer can pull out a win in Colorado's 8th congressional district, that race still too close to call, that she could become the face of Colorado Republicans. And she would become the de facto choice potentially for a high-profile race years down the road from now. But the Republicans tonight, as things are shaping up, they are in tough shape without a great bench. And things are not looking promising for a party that has not been this powerless in Colorado since before World War II. Let's talk to Marshall again about the state of the 8th Congressional District, that being the newly drawn district, 41% Latino, Adams and Weld County, a district thought to be leaning Republican toward the end of this race, leaning Democrat in terms of ballots counted.
Yeah, but it's shrinking. Caraveo, Democrat, State Rep Yadira Caraveo, had a 3% lead shortly, I don't know, 30 minutes ago, and now Barb Kirkmeyer has that down to 2.3%. What that means, it's 3,500 some odd votes. We've been looking at, the Weld County, Adams County split. Don't sleep on the little bits of Larimer County as well. I'm going to try this heat button. It's probably going to go completely white. Yep, that's not going to be good. Weld County has the majority of Republican voters that Barb Kirkmeyer needs. Adams County has the majority of Democrat voters that Caraveo needs, and the unaffiliated vote is key in both of the counties because unaffiliated voters make up the most in both the counties. I want to see if I can touch the Larimer County where Kirkmeyer leads by 200 and some odd votes. So that's kind of a wash. Let us look at the third party candidate because we talked about this earlier. There's 4% right there. That's 6,100 votes in a race that is separated by 3,500 votes. So we haven't seen this in a while in Colorado where that third party spoiler, I know they think they legitimately had a chance, but what you see here is, did it prevent, in this current iteration, is it preventing the Republican Barb Kirkmeyer from leading CD8? Is it benefiting Yadira Caraveo? It's tough to tell at the moment. That's a better look right now with it, the wide shot like that, taken full, the red on top, the blue on bottom. When I hit the heat, what this indicates is the level of support. So Weld County leans Kirkmeyer by 10,000. That's why it's slightly shaded red. And here in Adams County, Caraveo leads by 14,000. That's why it's slightly shaded blue. But when we look at it this way, all this is saying is whoever is in the lead by 50% plus one gets the full color in this county. Same here. This is currently the best chance for Republicans in Colorado to say, we still have a shot at something, we still have some power perhaps, and if this doesn't go the Republicans' way, I mean, CD8 could be in play 2 years from now because it's a seat that's up every 2 years, and we can see how close it is right now. But given the grand scheme of what we saw in every other race, where we see a 19-point spread for governor, a 14-point spread for Senate, Secretary of State's 13 points, and Attorney General is 11.5 points. It's tough to see the light at the end of the tunnel there for the next statewide race in Colorado, the next Senate race, the next gubernatorial race 4 years from now.
I was just thinking back, Marshall, to some of the larger defeats in Colorado gubernatorial history recently. And I want to say in 2010, Tom Tancredo, running on a third-party line, lost to John Hickenlooper by 14.6% in a pretty big blowout. If that margin for Polis over Ganahl stays in the 20-point range, I think we probably have to go back to Owens's reelection for a larger margin. Owens's reelection over State Senator Raleigh Heath of Boulder, that was like a 30-point blowout. So you're really reaching back into the annals of recent Colorado political history for that. In 2002, says David Flaherty, interesting that if that margin holds in the governor's race, that is in excess of the most favorable polling that we ever saw for Jared Polis. And I would just note, I think you and I have reported a bit on polls during this campaign, and because of the inability of pollsters in some past years, not every pollster, but from race to race, to capture conservative sentiment in places. And polls in Colorado were better than they were in other places. But we always just kind of wondered, you know, like, are they failing to capture conservatives? Are conservatives being honest with pollsters? Are those numbers showing up? You know, we saw an 18-point lead in a poll for Governor Polis and thought, that seems wildly out of hand. And now you watch the results come in.
I want to show this compared to 4 years ago real quickly, just to get a look at where the state has changed. Watch, there's going to be a few counties that turn from blue to red, which means Jared Polis took those counties currently in 2022, but lost those counties 4 years ago to Walker Stapleton. I'm going to point them out in this area and down below, and then we'll reference them. And I hope I got out of the way fast enough. It's Grand County, Park County, Douglas County, which could still change, but in 4 years ago, Walker Stapleton took that by 27,000, and when I go back to the current race, you'll see it's a 4,000 spread for Polis, and then Los Animas County down here. So these are the reds 4 years ago that turned blue for Polis right now. Let's look at Douglas County, which hasn't really changed much, if at all, from when those first batch of numbers came in, where Polis is leading Ganahl in her home county by 3,500. That could still change, especially if Republicans were holding onto their ballot until the end of the night, until the afternoon, and turning them in last minute prior to the 7 o'clock deadline. But even Grand County slightly in Polis's favor compared to Grand County last year with Stapleton's favor. Park County, minimal votes, 1,600 right now. There's still a lot to come in from that county, or sorry, Park County if I said Grand. And then Los Animas, currently Polis leads there 442, and 4 years ago it was pretty much 50-50 there. So minor changes, but you gotta hold on where it is, and the Republicans just didn't hold on, and especially in the top of the ticket, which is the governor's race. Again, in the Senate race, Joe O'Dea performed a little bit better, so that could suggest split tickets where it's I'm voting for Jared Polis and I'm also voting for Joe O'Dea. And then farther down, you get closer and closer. And then we haven't looked at CD7. I just want to point it out. The one time we showed it, Odlin was in the lead, now Pedersen by 20 points. And let's see if there's an update to CD8. Currently, there is not. It's still 2.3% in favor of Yadira Caraveo. Kyle, this is the one that may not be decided tonight.
Can you flip back to the 7th Congressional District? We have not spent a lot of time there. Republicans had hopes that with Democratic Representative Ed Perlmutter retiring and that seat up for grabs, it being redrawn, that they might have a shot there tonight. That's a shot, but it's not near the target.
No, the population center, Jefferson County, 44,000 in favor of Brittany Pedersen right now. And then you've got the ancillary counties here that aren't going to make up enough. You really needed to get Jefferson County, and it is, 3 out of every 5 voters going for Pedersen in CD7.
Hey, thanks for everybody who hung out with us over the last 2 hours here in our communal living room talking election results. We're now going to take off our slippers and put on our shoes for a bit more of a formal presentation for folks at 9 News at 9, but I hope you'll stick around for that.
few surprises.
On what was supposed to be a great night for Colorado Republicans, we are witnessing an epic collapse of that party in this state, with Democrats recording blowout wins all over the place. Democratic Governor Jared Polis had his race called within about 20 minutes of polls closing. At this point, he leads Republican challenger Heidi Ganahl by nearly 20 points. Democratic Senator Michael Bennett heads back to Washington on behalf of Colorado. Another blowout win, currently a 14-point margin against Republican Joe O'Dea. And in Colorado's 3rd congressional district, the potential upset that no one was talking about, Democrat Adam Frisch currently leads incumbent Republican Lauren Boebert by 4 points. That race is certainly far from decided, but that is a shocker of an early result in the 3rd congressional district, which we need to remember has only been Boebert's district for 2 years, but was redistricted to become more conservative, more Republican.
Remember what an upset it was when she beat Scott Tipton?
Yep.
And then she became such a big voice on a big national stage.
She became a Republican star like Colorado has not seen probably since Tom Tancredo had his national flash in the pan as an anti-immigration voice. But Lauren Boebert has achieved a level of Republican stardom in America that far eclipses that in this particular age. And while it's no guarantee, Marshall Zellinger, that she's going to lose tonight, she's got a hell of a race on her hands.
When the district was redrawn, it went, I think, +7 more Republican.
Yeah.
And this was an area where, you know, people were interviewed. It's like, yeah, we love her. So what's going on? And it's Mesa County. The population centers, Mesa County and Pueblo County. And let's walk over what I like to do, walk over to the map. This is not going to be necessarily the best television because this map from the Secretary of State's office can refresh in real time. But we're looking at Mesa County red, which means Lauren Boebert has 50% +1 support here. Pueblo County blue, that's the population centers. And of course, I left my notes over there, but it's based on what I want to show, and I think it refreshed, so it's not going to be there. So we're going to stay on the map. Basically, in Mesa County, I believe it was about 110,000 total voters in Mesa County. Thank you, Kim, for bringing this to me. I appreciate that. In Mesa County, 106,000 total voters, 48,000 unaffiliated, 40,000 Republican, and 15,000 Democrats. And in this county alone, Lauren Boebert is leading by 6,000. 25,000 more Republican voters than Democrats, and she's leading by just 6,000 votes in that county. I'm going to move this over and then bring up Pueblo because I want to talk about their stats. And I wish I could make this bigger, but I just don't trust this website. Pueblo has 110,000 total voters. 37,000 are Democrats, 26,000 are Republicans, and Adam Frisch has the advantage here by, I'd say, 5,500, 5,600. So he is definitely ahead, but so far in these results, it's going more blue. Doesn't mean it's going to hold that way, but in the population centers, we've seen the results come in, and Boebert's going to need, for every 10 votes that come in, she's going to need like 6 or 7 to make up the difference.
It's really stunning what we're seeing happen tonight, because when you consider the election environment that we're in, you've got a Democrat in the White House, which favors Republicans during a midterm. You've got high inflation. You've got concerns about crime. You've got concerns about immigration. This is a time of turmoil, and Colorado voters have said, thank you, but we'll stick with the team that we have.
Right. Right, and even though that is definitely against what we're seeing across the country in many places.
It is not what we would have expected. Our Alex Lewis is at the Democratic Victory Party tonight, where the victories have been plentiful.
Okay. In this race, and I want to congratulate Lang.
Hi, Kyle. About an hour ago, we heard from Governor Polis, who made his victory speech here on stage amongst a couple of hundred very enthusiastic voters and constituents. And, you know, during that speech, he really touted everything he considered to be a win during his first administration. He talked about Colorado having the 9th lowest rate of COVID deaths during the pandemic of every state in the country. He talked about all-day kindergarten giving parents other options and flexibility to make more money while educating our kids here. He also talked about having the largest property tax cut in the state of Colorado's history. And he talked a lot about our best days are ahead of us as Coloradans, as a state. And when I asked him specifically, how can you say that, especially in the light of inflation, with the state becoming so expensive to live in? This is what his response was.
Whether you voted for me or not, I will work as hard as I possibly can on behalf of you and your family, and I'll never stop fighting for a better future for the state that I love. And you can always rest assured that I will always do what's right for Colorado.
He talked a lot about affordable housing and making Colorado a place that people who live here want to stay, can afford to live and thrive. And also ran into him in the hall, Kyle. You'll be interested to hear. I asked him, does he have his eyes set on the White House? Just kind of smirked and said, as far as right now, his eyes are only on this great state.
And if anybody believes that, if anybody believes that, but you know what? It's the kind of thing where if somebody builds a profile for themselves, then these questions are going to come about other races. I mean, goodness Lord, I remember years ago when Cory Gardner was just getting into the Senate, people were saying, "Oh man, he could run for president someday."
Absolutely,
because he captured something at that moment that people connected with, and clearly, Governor what Governor Polis has done is he's earned the trust of Coloradans. You see it in those election results. Doesn't mean he doesn't have detractors. Doesn't mean there aren't things he hasn't done wrong or things he's been misleading about. We've talked about those things here. But this is an overwhelming vote of approval for a governor in a state that tends to reelect its governors.
Right, and he did get, I think the pandemic in many ways, the way he handled it and how he used his opportunities to be on a national stage during the pandemic, he used it quite effectively. And that's part of the reason why I think many of us think that he's looking to do something beyond this at this point. His campaign I thought was interesting too, and when you look at some of those last debates, he was chill, for lack of a better description. I mean, he seemed like, let's go in, let's have this debate. I'm okay.
I think he was a little feisty. I mean,
he didn't seem like his normal uptight self sometimes.
Well, I think what it is, and we straight up asked him about this when he did an extended interview here, was, have you come to enjoy debates? And he said I have. And
which
honestly,
was not his
I think what it is now for him is that he feels like he has a record to run on. His critics don't like his record, but he now feels like he has a record to run on rather than promises to run on. It's a lot easier to run on a record than promises. And I also think if you're a Colorado Republican or conservative looking at what's going on tonight, we thought, you know what, at least going into tonight, which should be a really good night for Republicans, you're going to get kind of like a test run of two different philosophies. You've got kind of a Trumpy candidate appealing to the far right base and gubernatorial candidate Heidi Ganahl, and then you got a guy rejecting Trump and running toward the middle in Joe O'Dea. And it was going to be a real test on which one of those approaches would work in Colorado. And the answer is neither. Both of them got smoked like brisket.
Which is interesting because many people felt like Joe O'Dea was a very good candidate.
He was definitely a very different kind of candidate than the Trump-like candidates that had been run. But what we're seeing from Colorado voters tonight, for the moment, is they're not interested in either. And that presents a real challenge for the Republican Party. Mark Salinger is out at Heidi Ganahl's, well, it's not a victory party, it's just a party, I suppose, out in Sedalia, where tearfully Ganahl took to the podium and cast some blame for her loss and promised to keep fighting.
Yeah, Kyle, it was billed as a victory party. It obviously is not a victory party anymore, even though the music is still extremely loud here. Heidi Ganahl is still behind me right now, thanking supporters, giving people hugs, their kids dancing on the stage. She just got off the stage moments ago after thanking supporters in a tearful concession speech. She said, quote, "I'm sorry that we couldn't pull this off tonight." Now, this was a full-on concession speech as she's down double-digit points as the votes continue to be tallied. Her running mate, Danny Moore, who is the lieutenant governor candidate, who was the lieutenant governor candidate, I spoke with him right after the speech, after he came off, and he's someone who had previously questioned the 2020 election, and he told me tonight that he accepts the results tonight and that he has always had faith in the Colorado election system. Now, Ganahl, for her part, we haven't had the opportunity to speak with her, though we'll try. Ganahl thanked her supporters and told them that she's not going anywhere.
You all had a voice. Don't let tonight silence you. We're not going to give up the fight. Make sure those in power know decisions made in Denver boardrooms should really be made at the kitchen table by the people of Colorado. The tough choices parents must make to make ends meet are what our elected leaders should be guided by, not what unelected bureaucrats say is best.
Ganahl also wished her opponent, Governor Polis, luck and told him, speaking to him directly, said, "Please do not forget the voters who voted for me in your next term as governor." Now, important to note that Heidi Ganahl held her own election night watch party here in Sedalia, apart from the bigger GOP watch party. She was scheduled to speak there, but Kyle, we're told that she never made it there.
Yeah, she kind of broke away from the Republican Party down the home stretch. They were very focused on inflation and crime messages, and she started veering into conspiracy theories about, big tech censorship and kids identifying as cats and stuff like that. And a lot of Republicans were just like, inside the party, a lot of Republicans were just like, not interested. That's not how we're going to win. And that is, in fact, not how they won. Let's look at
what
two
she
congressional
said on the
races.
stage, though, tonight was very much consistent with what she has started with. Be a governor for all of Colorado. It's much what Joe O'Dea said.
It was on script.
Yeah, exactly.
Much like Trump.
It's very different than what she said in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, there's on script and off script.
Right.
And she was on script tonight. Quick look at two congressional races. This is the 7th district. This used to be Ed Perlmutter's district. Democrat retired. They redrew the district. Republicans had high hopes that they were going to win, and they're getting walloped. It's a 20-point edge for Democrat Brittany Pedersen.
I think that's something people are relatively surprised by.
That margin is
by
wild.
that margin.
Yeah.
I mean, Ed Perlmutter was intensely popular, had been there for such a long time, known for his grocery store meetups with everyone, and really had kind of set the tone for that district, but then once it got redrawn.
This was the best hope for Colorado Republicans tonight, and they still very well may pull out this race. This is the new 8th congressional district, the Denver suburbs in Adams County up to southwestern Weld County into Greeley. This is a 40-41% Latino district, a district that was leaning Republican down the home stretch, and Republican Barbara Kirkmeyer narrowly trails Democratic State Representative Dr. Yadira Caraveo 49 to 47%, with an outsized presence by a third-party candidate, 4% for the Libertarian candidate Richard Ward. That would be the second best performance by a third-party candidate in a major race in Colorado since 1950, if that number holds. We'll be watching that race, and we'll look at other statewide results when we return.
That 4% is insane.
What do you... Welcome back on a consequential election night in Colorado, and not what very many people expected. Blowout wins for Democrats here, there, and everywhere on a night that was expected to be very favorable for Republicans coast to coast. This is the race for Secretary of State.
And then we also look at the Attorney General race, where we see Phil Weiser winning. Again, that was a race that many felt was very close, and Treasurer. So many people felt like that Dave Young and Lang Syce were both very good candidates. And if anything, the Republicans could possibly win that race.
Well, these last two races, Treasurer and Attorney General, Republicans felt like they had very strong messaging this year. Treasurer, ask somebody, what does the Colorado Treasurer do? And they say, I've got no idea whatsoever. Nobody knows what the Treasurer does. And I'm not even going to bore you with it right now. But Republicans felt like Treasurer equals money, equals protect my pocketbook. People like Republicans for that. It's an 11-point Democratic lead. And the race for AG, the Attorney General does not prosecute low-level crime on the streets. But you know what? Who really knows that? So Republicans thought, well, listen, maybe we can convince people that Phil Weiser is responsible for car thefts or break-ins or something like that. And they thought they had a really strong message in the AG's race. And Weiser was certainly worried about it. But it never turned into anything. It's astonishing that in a year where Republicans had legitimately strong messaging, the Colorado voters just kind of said, no thanks.
And I understand, like, and you look in the Secretary of State race, Jenna Griswold had a ton of money.
And a lot of name recognition, notoriety.
Name recognition, but Pam Anderson was a very good candidate who represented what I think many people believe the Republican Party once was when it was very strong in our state.
Well, she was a fact-based Republican.
Yes.
She is a reality-based Republican. Pam Anderson, the Republican who lost the Secretary of State's race tonight, was one of the strongest voices against election denialism in her party. Never translated into fundraising support from out of state, which she would have needed in order to go up against Jenna Griswold, who has built a very prominent presence for herself through appearances on MSNBC and national fundraising, despite some pretty obvious missteps in her time in office. Hasn't really hurt her, and she's been a fundraising juggernaut. And Republicans never came in with the money to help Pam Anderson win that race. And Pam Anderson, who came out of the primary with 10 knives in her back, just never really got the first aid from the party.
No, and that's when you see money does make a difference, perhaps.
I mean, certainly Jenna Griswold had the ability to really control the narrative in that race. I want to bring in pollster David Flaherty to talk about the congressional races that are still up for grabs. One that we expected, the 8th Congressional District, Yadira Caraveo and Barb Kirkmeyer. And let's start with the one that we did not necessarily expect to be competitive, Western Slope in southern Colorado, Republican Lauren Bobert and Democrat Adam Frisch. Frisch currently holds a lead. What do we know about how many votes are still out there? What's the state of that race?
Great question, Kyle. Right now, about 241,000 ballots have been cast or counted so far in the third, and Adam Frisch still holds roughly a 10,000 vote lead. Our team back in our shop at Magellan forecasts that total turnout could be close to 340 to 350,000 votes. So in our opinion, there are still over 100,000 votes potentially to be counted in that election in the third. So with that many votes out there, depending on where they're coming from, many of them are going to be election day votes from both Pueblo and as well as Mesa. Still puts this race completely still, far from being called in one way or the other. And Lauren Bobert could make up the ground here. It's absolutely possible. So I would definitely, just sit tight there and watch things unfold through the evening.
A quick note on that before we go to 8. We were talking earlier tonight about the conspiracy theory that was circulating amongst some conservatives that they should never do mail-in ballots, that they should only vote in person. And the call went out this afternoon from Lauren Bobert's former campaign manager, Sharona Bishop, who's kind of a conservative star, telling people vote after 3 p.m. in person in blue ink only. If people listened to her in Mesa County and did that, it's conceivable that there is a late wave of Republican votes.
Yes, without question. And you would presume there were. Folks that really believe in Donald Trump's message that elections were stolen and these election deniers will wait to the last minute to vote. So we do also see, when we compare the election results from 2018 or the day of, like how many votes have been cast, Republican turnout is down as of this morning in many counties across Colorado. Many Republicans followed that advice. So we do anticipate a higher than normal Republican surge of ballots. Whether it's enough to have Lauren Boebert pull into the lead, we're just going to have to wait and see.
30 seconds on the 8th Congressional District?
Very, very close. Again, we all thought it was going to be this tight. I'm not sure if everybody anticipated. I feel some people felt that the Kirkmeyer campaign had the inside edge with the national narrative leaning towards Republicans. However, still, again, a long way to go. A lot of votes to be counted in that one, and we're just going to have to see, Kyle.
We're going to keep a close eye on that one. We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back.
Let's run through our results quickly as we wait to join folks watching national coverage on 9 News tonight. Blowout win for Governor Jared Polis over Republican Heidi Ganahl.
And Senator Michael Bennett also defeat his Republican opponent, Joe O'Dea, by a significant margin.
Too close to call in Colorado's 8th Congressional District. We'll talk more about that in just a moment.
And we're also going to take a quick look at District 7, replacing Ed Perlmutter. Brittany Pedersen has a large win, and they've called that win over her opponent, Eric Odlett.
Democratic Secretary of State Jenna Griswold has been reelected tonight over her Republican challenger, Pam Anderson, a tighter margin than some of the other statewide races.
And we'll look at the Attorney General race. Phil Weiser elected again over John Keldner.
Similar margin for incumbent Democratic Treasurer Dave Young over Republican Lang Sias.
And this is the one that we're watching, District 3. We never expected to be looking at these numbers at this time of the night.
Good evening. It's turning into a landslide night for Colorado Democrats, regardless of what is happening nationwide for Republicans. It truly is shocking that we are watching the collapse of this party's hopes in their biggest potential year in a decade.
Yeah, it has been. It's been a long time, and people have looked at this race and looked at the governor's race and the Senate race, but then to watch it all follow significantly down the road for the Democrats. A couple of races, though, we're keeping a close eye on.
So all the statewide races have gone to the Democrats, from governor to Senate on down, and by wide margins. We're still watching two close congressional races. Here's political reporter Marshall Zellinger.
Close. We'll start with the one that's not so close, Congressional District 7, which is a 19-point difference for State Representative Brittany Pedersen against Eric Odlin. This is the newest district that Ed Perlmutter is leaving. It got redrawn. Jefferson County is the population center where Pedersen won currently by 47,000 votes, and that's where the majority of the votes are coming from currently that you would need to win this district, and that's in Pedersen's favor. The close one, Congressional District 8, the brand new congressional district, because Colorado grew so much in the last 10 years and we got a new congressional seat because of the census. This is narrowing. It's 2.7% difference right now. Yadira Caraveo is up, the Democrat. But let's just scroll down to Richard Ward, the Libertarian candidate, getting 4% of the votes, 6,300 votes for Ward, and the difference between the Democrat and the Republican, 4,200 votes. So this new district that encompasses Weld County, Adams County, and a sliver of Larimer County, this is going to go through the night and into tomorrow probably, and then we're going to be talking about, hey, did that third-party candidate take a victory away perhaps from whoever loses?
And that second close congressional race that we were talking about is Lauren Boebert's race, trailing by 4 on the Western Slope. We're watching that over on KTVD. Tonight, it has been the art of the concession for Colorado Republicans who entered tonight with hopes that they could win their first big race in this state since 2014. Mm-hmm. And that's not going to happen. They could win the 8th Congressional District. But that's not a race the size of what they were hoping to come away with tonight.
You know what was refreshing? They were gracious.
Uh-huh.
I love that. I mean, sometimes anymore we've gotten away from that, but it's Colorado politics. When you concede, you're professional and you're gracious. And then you also talk about what you really want, because in this case we heard from Heidi Ganahl and Joe O'Dea that they feel like we need representation around our state, and they're challenging the people they lost to do a better job. Let's get to Steve Steger, who was at the Republican Party in Greenwood Village, still is, and I'm sure that they're disappointed. But they talked, I'm sure, a little bit about what they woulda, coulda, shoulda.
Yeah, you know, party is an interesting word to use for something like this. This kind of has the enthusiasm of a late season out of the playoffs Rockies game here in Greenwood Village tonight. We just heard concessions from Pam Anderson from Lang Sias and from John Kellner, the three candidates for statewide office who the Republicans really had a lot of hope for. What was striking to me in Pam Anderson's concession speech was a call to this crowd and a reminder that about the integrity of our elections, about the integrity of county clerks, speaking very candidly to this crowd about the hard work that county clerks do to make elections fair in Colorado. And then John Kellner mentioning that he believes that his campaign and the campaign for the Attorney General's office and just kind of the tone of all of the Republican campaigns have pushed legislation stiffening penalties for fentanyl, pushed legislation stiffening penalties for auto theft, kind of getting that, making that part of the conversation even in defeat. But the first person we heard from tonight here at headquarters was Joe O'Dea, who conceded the race to Michael Bennett just shortly after Bennett took the stage at the Democratic Watch Party. We have a little bit of Bennett's speech and a little bit of O'Dea's as well.
What I want to tell you is why we won this campaign in Colorado. And we won this campaign because we told the truth from the beginning to the end of this election. We said the same things in red parts of the state and blue parts of the state. In our primary and our general election, we told the truth.
So many people poured their hearts, their souls into this race. We all did. And the outcome is a tough pill to swallow. But that's life in the big city. We fought hard. We competed. We stayed true to our core and our beliefs and our values.
That's life in the big city, the word from Joe O'Dea here at the Republican Watch Party in Greenwood Village. Life in the big city, while this room is really watching life in the smaller city, looking across the state in CD3. Our Kelly Rinke on the ground talked to the head of the Colorado Republican Party, Chrissy Burton Brown, who says that she believes that Lauren Boebert will pull through in that very close race in CD3, so something to watch here. Something else I noticed in the crowd are signs of the last Republican victories in Colorado, and you have to think back to about a year ago. I see members, or I saw, they've disappeared now as the crowd has kind of thinned out. I saw members of the Aurora City Council, Dustin Zvonek, Danielle Jurinsky, part of that base that helped build a conservative majority on the Aurora City Council. That's what this group was celebrating a year ago, that and making some gains on school boards in Douglas County. They thought they would have momentum building off of that to tonight. Thus far, nothing to celebrate here. The TV's been on Fox News all night as they watch other Republican wins across the country, but so far, nothing to celebrate here in Greenwood Village.
I just think back over the last couple of months, all of the effort that went from the O'Dea campaign into trying to convince people that that race was competitive, trying to convince voters and volunteers that the race was competitive, worth spending their time and treasure on, and convincing the media and convincing national Republicans that it was competitive, and it wasn't a bit.
Yeah, we heard that on the networks just a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, the networks were hot for O'Dea because they wanted a spoiler, they wanted an upset, and it was hope over reality, as it turned out. We'll be right back.
Oh, I thought we were going to talk to Marshall.
I think we still can. So one of the big hopes that Republicans had going into tonight was that they would be able to retake the Colorado State Senate. If they could do that, even if they lost the governor's race, as they have, Democratic Governor Jared Polis retains the governor's mansion. Even if Democrats retain the Colorado House, if Republicans can win back the Senate for the first time since I want to say 2018, then they could gum up the works.
Right.
They could basically stop the Democratic legislation in its tracks. Marshall, how's that coming for him?
Not good. Back to you. No, So this is the state Senate map as the night started. Half the seats were up for election. 12-6 Democrats over Republicans. And the magic number you want to get to is 18 to have power of the Senate. So that's what the Republicans wanted to do. Get to 18. Or at least get darn close. So based on the results as they stand right now, I can color that many Republican candidates. So it's tied 12-12, but that just means the remainder go toward the Democrats. And if everything holds firm, not only did the Republicans not make a gain, they lose 2 seats if everything holds, which means the Senate would remain in control of the Democrats. And not just that, but you've got that 1 seat from State Senator Kevin Priola, who went from Republican to Democrat, and he is colored blue on this map already. If it was 18-17 Democrats, you know there was going to be that attempted recall against him to try to get him out and get a Republican in there to get the Republicans the lead 18-17. But we're not even close to that. And there are about 3 or 4 close races currently that more results could come in and it could swing. I think 3 of them are colored blue right now on this map. 1's colored red. But if everything holds, you have some incumbents losing, and you've got Democrats taking even more control of the Senate. And I got to look at the state house. We got a map. This is how the state house looked to start the night. Everyone is up for re-election, or every seat's up for election in the House. So all 65 seats are up. And I was counting the current results, and after I got through 50 of the 65 districts, I've got it 40-10. Democrats. I got to continue the final 15 to figure out where that stands. So this could be swaying even more Democratic. And I think my history, this was as extreme of, it swings like a pendulum, where Republicans once led 41-24. And I don't remember it being more than 41, but someone's going to hit me on Twitter, or someone in this room is going to tell me I'm wrong, and that it was like 43 or 44. But I got to go through my history to see what the biggest swing for the state house is. But what this says is whatever the Democrats want to try to pass in Colorado, it's going to get to the governor's desk, and the only thing that could stop it is a governor's veto.
And so I think what we're likely to see then, if history is a guide and what folks in Democratic politics are talking about, is there's increasing concern among liberal progressive circles about where the Supreme Court is and where it's going to be for the foreseeable future. So the idea is that liberals want to shore up as many rights as they can at the state level, as they did with the Reproductive Health Equity Act passed by Democrats in this last legislative session that ensconced abortion rights in Colorado law. You could see them ensconce all kinds of other rights as kind of like a bulwark against the federal government or against the courts.
Absolutely. And then when you talk about that recall election, that won't even happen. They won't consider something like that, would they, Marshall? It's not worth their time.
Oh, not if it's 23-12. If it's 2015, they probably still wouldn't do it, unless people have money to burn for no reason to not switch power.
Well, on a night in which many hands could be warmed over burning barrels of other people's money.
I think they need to save money right now for the next one, right? You got more important ways to spend your money on both sides.
There was a lot flushed this evening or up in flames. Back with more election coverage after this.
How much of that, though, do you think Hey, there were a lot more than just candidates on the ballot.
There's booze.
Booze is one of those things. Let's get to Jenny Meckles, and we'll talk about taxes and booze and what happened.
Let's talk about taxes first, then we can talk about booze. How's that sound? Prop 121 reduces the state income tax rate from 4.55% down to 4.4%. Right now, voters have strongly supported that lower rate. The yes votes are quite a bit ahead. You see there 65% to 35%. 123 also deals with state income tax, sort of. This sets aside a portion of that revenue collected to pay for affordable housing programs in our state. That one's very close right now, 51 to 49. Yes votes ahead still at this point. Now let's talk about booze. This might surprise a lot of people, but Coloradans had to vote on 3 boozy ballot measures at this hour. It looks like Colorado's pretty uninterested in changing its alcohol laws. Prop 124 would let liquor store license holders increase the number of stores each year all the way up to an unlimited amount in 2037. Not popular. The no's are way ahead, 62% to 37%. Prop 125, this is wine and grocery stores, putting them in the same places that just a few years ago allowed beer in grocery stores. That's neck and neck right now. So we'll see how that one does as the night goes on. And then finally, Prop 126, this allows liquor stores to partner with third-party companies like DoorDash, to deliver booze instead of having to rely on their own employees. That also right now is not winning. Looks like another fail. So it's interesting to see what Coloradans think of some of these booze laws, guys.
This stuff is interesting to me because the opposition was pretty minimal. You had all kinds of out-of-state money coming in telling people to vote for this. And this is a state that is often kind of, you know, hey, listen, your body, enjoy your substances, you know. But
we passed marijuana a long time ago, 10 years ago.
Well, and it was going to be an interesting conversation around like competition and how businesses maybe could or could not compete, but also like what are consumer habits? Do people want the convenience and how that was going to, and I think that's interesting that maybe that's not of interest to the consumer so much as letting maybe small business owners continue as they do now. So.
Maybe they just go to breweries.
Maybe, I tell you what, it's not like the grocery stores are going to try to stop on this quest to get wine.
No.
It's not like Total Wine is going to stop trying to get as many licenses as they can. I have a feeling that those booze measures will be back, as will we.
Okay.
quickly look at some of these national races, many key Senate races too close to call. Republicans are likely to gain control of the U.S. House. Democratic Senator Raphael Warnock is going against Trump favorite Herschel Walker in Georgia. Georgia, closely divided state in the 2020 presidential election. That race is less than 2 points apart right now. In Pennsylvania, Republican Dr. Oz is up against Democrat John Fetterman. Pennsylvania, one of those states Joe Biden carried. Again, Fetterman is currently leading, but it's by less than a point. NBC has called New Hampshire's Senate race for Senator Maggie Hassan. Democrats spent money during the primary to get their preferred opponent on the ballot. Don Bolnick nominated. He's gone back and forth as to whether President Biden won the election. Lastly, in Wisconsin, Republican Senator Ron Johnson is running for a third term. He's the only Republican seeking re-election in a state President Biden won. Right now, he is leading. That close, though, race too close to call. And we're also watching races for Senate in Arizona and Nevada. Historically, the president's party often loses seats in Congress in the midterms. Not surprising.
No. What is surprising is that Republican Congresswoman Lauren Boebert, Colorado's Western Slope in southern Colorado, has a real race on her hands. She's actually come out to speak to supporters down about 4 points. It appears that she is currently praying with supporters.
I thank you for what you are doing in the hearts and minds of people in Colorado and throughout this nation. Holy Spirit, I thank you that you are moving, that you are working, that you are ministering to the hearts of people. That's what this is all about. People. We want the best for people as you do, God. Thank you for sending your son Jesus to rescue us. God, may we live worthy of the price that was paid for us to be your sons and daughters.
Congresswoman Lauren Boebert is one of a number of Republicans with national profiles who have successfully built what you could call a Christian nationalist profile, where she mixes end times rhetoric to certain audiences with standard issue conservative economic and social appeals and that kind of thing. So certainly on message for Boebert to be appealing for help from above, as that is very much kind of part of her political brand. We'll be right back. what we begin to have to talk about at this point, when we have blowout Democratic wins in Colorado on a night that was supposed to be very favorable to Republicans, is whether you can still call this a purple state.
I wore a purple tie.
I know. I tried
Purple's
to find a
always
berry
safe.
color, and it's not really pulling for me. But
the whole idea of a swing state is that it swings. Ain't no swing tonight.
No, but history says, at least for state power, it eventually comes back the other way.
Someday it will, sure,
Yeah.
sure. But the idea that this is an active swing state that flows with the political tides back and forth, I think Republicans would acknowledge it's been edging left from that standpoint for years. But this now appears to be a state that's in a different state. If you have a year that favors Republicans and race after race after race, they're taking 14, 15-point L's.
Here's where we're purple. Politically liberal, socially liberal, fiscally conservative.
Voting down tax hikes.
so then you think, too, maybe we have to decide what kind of a Democratic state we are from maybe.
Liberal or progressive? That's going to be your next fight. Not Republican, Democrat. Liberal, progressive within the Democratic Party.
Can that wait for 9 News at 10?
It can.
All right.
It has to.
It was supposed to be a great night for Colorado Republicans. It is turning into a landslide night for Colorado Democrats.
We are currently witnessing an epic collapse of support for Republicans in Colorado, with Democrats recording blowout wins even in this year that was supposed to be so favorable for the GOP. Democratic Governor Jared Polis is headed for the widest win in a Colorado governor's race in 20 years. He's beating Republican Heidi Ganahl by more than 18 points.
Democratic Senator Michael Bennett will continue to represent Colorado in the U.S. Senate. Republican Joe O'Dea has conceded, behind by about 15 points.
A race that is too close to call could provide the largest upset of the night. Nationwide conservative star Congresswoman Lauren Bobert currently trails her Democratic challenger Bobert-Frisch in the 3rd Congressional District, representing the Western Slope and Southern Colorado.
We have reporters across the state covering all the big races for us tonight. We'll head to the watch parties and hear from the candidates in just a moment.
Let's first talk about what's happening in Lauren Boebert's district, because if she were to lose tonight, that would become a national headline because of the national profile that she has built for herself. She's done it traveling around the country, becoming a Republican star, and the question is, are people unhappy at home?
Apparently, you need to pass legislation to be still liked by your electorate. We thought this was going to be a big night for Bobert, only because when the district was redrawn because of redistricting, it went +7 more for Republicans. So this is what the district looks like now. These are the counties that make up the 3rd Congressional District. Your population centers are Mesa County and Pueblo County. Mesa County, where Grand Junction is. Let's see what the vote is currently. And of course, this is the Secretary of State site that refreshes in real time. There we go. And the vote total here is in favor of Lauren Boebert by about 6,000, 31,000 to 25,000. So that's where she needs more votes to come for her. Pueblo is moving in favor of Frisch. And this is a county that has swung both ways, where Republicans tend to get the benefit of the doubt in the last, I don't know, 10 years, which is why it's been represented by a Republican. Here, Adam Frisch has the advantage by 6,000 votes. So those are the two counties, as more votes come in, that will tell us whether or not which way this is going to go. If more Bobert votes come in Mesa County, like we had expected, that's going to be in her advantage. And if she doesn't make up the gap in Pueblo County, that's going to be an advantage for Adam Frisch. But yeah, this is a 3rd Congressional District that I think everybody thought was going to go Bobert just because of the way the district was redrawn.
This is the current state in the race for governor. Jared Polis with an astonishing 18-point lead over Heidi Ganahl. This is a lead as large or slightly larger than any polling that existed in this race at any point. He was certainly favored, but not by this kind of margin, Marshall.
Oh, gosh, no. And that's, I mean, between the governor, Senate, Secretary of State, Attorney General, you're seeing the margin of victory wide and then narrow, but it's still not even within less than double digits. I think the treasurer's race is the closest, and that's 11 points. This is one of the congressional district races so CD3 is close. We told you about that. CD7, Congressional District 7, where Ed Perlmutter is resigning, stepping down from Congress. It's an open seat, and Brittany Pedersen is ahead by 52,000 votes in a newly drawn 7th Congressional District. For Ed Perlmutter, it was more metro area, Jefferson County, and more into the metro area. Now Jefferson County is still in it, but then it bleeds into the foothills and the mountains, and it's a 18-point advantage for Brittany Pedersen. CD8 is the other close congressional district. This is the brand new district that Colorado got because we grew so much in the last 10 years. This one is getting closer. It started last, I saw an hour and a half ago, it was 3 points for the advantage of Yadira Caraveo. It is now 2.3% difference. 3,700 votes separate the two in Weld County, Adams County, and a sliver of Larimer County. But this is going to be the talking point here. Libertarian candidate Richard Ward getting 4% of the vote, 6,400 votes almost. And the difference between the top two, 3,800, and it's, again, narrowing. But when you bring in this third-party candidate into the equation, that's going to be the talk about we already knew it was going to be a close race in CD8, and then you have this third-party candidate that perhaps maybe made it sway one way or the other that it wouldn't have if it was just the top two candidates going against each other.
Tonight, we've proven once again what a special place Colorado is, a place where we truly value decency and hard work, where we fight for our freedoms.
Democratic Governor Jared Polis with the first victory speech of the night after his blowout win over Republican Heidi Ganahl.
Our colleague Alex Lewis was there, had the opportunity to speak to the governor afterwards, and he certainly feels vindicated after weathering a lot of criticism through the pandemic and afterwards to come out on top with such a convincing win.
100%, and Kyle, you hit the nail on the head. That is what he talked a lot about during his victory speech, is the idea that people trusted him through the pandemic, that it was not an easy thing to make decision after decision to keep Coloradans safe, and that people of this state trust him to take us into the next level of what comes next. And when you talk about what comes next, you have to talk about what we're dealing with now, which is inflation, which is the homelessness crisis, which is people who grew up in this great state and call Colorado home who can no longer afford to live here. And that's what he has of top of mind as he gets into his second term. This is what he had to say.
We've been through some tough times. The 3 largest wildfires in the history of our state, the most destructive fire 10 months ago, global pandemic, global economic uncertainty. But through it all, I did my best to look at data, make informed decisions every day, pragmatic approach, and I'm looking forward to bringing that same background and focus to make Colorado an even more amazing place over the next 4 years.
So essentially more of the same is what he is promising, and that's what voters by a wide margin say that they believe in, that he's going to bring to the state as we move forward. The party is still rocking here at the Art Hotel. 2 of 3 bars are fresh out of booze, so that just shows you how much celebrating has been happening here. Jared Polis very excited by this huge win as we go into his next term.
Okay, we'll talk about the booze amendments later.
Yeah.
When you talk about booze.
Everybody
Thanks,
got to
Alex.
say on on that. Polis's Republican challenger Heidi Ganahl, even if you talk to Republicans privately, they will say that she put on a clinic on how to lose an election in Colorado in a year when they wanted to talk about inflation and crime and government spending. She was wandering off talking about the conspiracy theory of the day, from big tech censorship to election integrity to kids identifying as cats and courting the far right base of the party, and it blew up big time.
And she was the top of the ballot. And perhaps that had an impact as well. A lot to consider for the Republican Party. She did concede. She was emotional. She gave a speech about an hour ago. And our Mark Salinger was there and caught up with Heidi Ganahl a little bit after that. Mark?
Yeah, Kyle and Kim, the party here at Ganahl headquarters in Sedalia is very much over. Not at all like Alex was showing us with the Democrats just moments ago. Now, Heidi Ganahl got on stage and gave a tearful concession speech about an hour or so ago, saying, quote, "I'm sorry that we couldn't pull this off tonight." Now, this was a full-on concession speech as she's down double-digit points and the votes are still being tallied. Now, Danny Moore, her running mate for lieutenant governor, and someone who has previously questioned the 2020 election results as an election denier. Now, I caught up with him just after their speech, and he says that tonight he accepts the results and has always had faith in the Colorado election system. Ganahl, for her part, thanked supporters and told them she's not going anywhere.
Tonight didn't go the way we had hoped for or prayed for, but that doesn't mean we give up. This I know. This movement is real.
Ganahl, for her part, also thanked supporters and asked Governor Jared Polis to not forget about the people who voted for her during his next term as governor. Now, it's important to note that Heidi Ganahl did give media interviews after this. We tried to ask her questions, Kyle, like you were saying, about what her final message, as her closing message was in the last couple of weeks in the campaign. Her campaign team told us that 9 News was not allowed to ask questions, and when I tried to ask a question to the candidate, her security team stepped in front of me and her campaign team started yelling over my questions.
It was striking tonight. Ganahl, in her concession speech, specifically thanked conservative talk radio for getting out her message when she said the mainstream media would not. Ganahl, from the start of her campaign to the end, was unwilling to do an in-depth interview here and declined to debate Democratic Governor Jared Polis here. Marshall Salinger, thank you very much. If Democratic Senator Michael Bennett finishes the 6-year term he was reelected to tonight, Bennett will become the longest-serving senator in Colorado history. He told our Alex Lewis that tonight's blue wave in Colorado, in his view, is a rejection of former President Donald Trump.
I think that Colorado has seen that you don't have to settle for the chaos of Donald Trump. There are a lot of Democrats and Republicans that I've met throughout the years who thought that was the best we could ever hope for. And now, over the last 18 months, you've seen the most significant bipartisan infrastructure bill that's been passed since Eisenhower was president, bipartisan postal reform bill that's so important to rural Colorado, a bipartisan gun bill, the first in a generation.
Interesting. Bennett's opponent was Joe O'Dea. A lot of hopes on him because he was untested. Also someone that former President Trump didn't want anything to do with because he rejected him. Steve Steger is joining us from GOP party tonight. As we've mentioned, not much of a party anymore. But you heard Joe O'Dea give his concession. He was gracious in defeat, but talked a little bit about his vision for the entire state.
Yeah, I mean, he was very graceful in the way he conceded, Kim, but as you could tell, the mood here at GOP headquarters, we won't call it a party because it really wasn't a party all night long. Here now, the floor basically vacant. The band, Carlos Washington's Steel Horse Swing, they just wrapped up. They told me they're used to playing to more people, and there really weren't anyone out there on the floor to dance along. There was a large crowd when Joe O'Dea did give his concession speech, conceding very gracefully to Michael Bennett, one of the first words of concession that this crowd got, and then he took the stage shortly after Michael Bennett did. Here's what he had to say.
And I want to congratulate Senator Bennett on his victory. I hope he'll lead into his commitments that he made during the campaign and work to move the nation forward out of this terrible rut, partisanship, and gridlock.
It's interesting to hear the Republican Party talk about this race, that many of the statewide offices lost by double digits. A lot of them say that they feel that they influenced policy decisions, like Attorney General candidate John Kellner says that talking about fentanyl, talking about auto theft got policy moved at the state legislature, but that's the only victory they're able to claim tonight. I should mention we still have not seen or heard from Republican congressional candidate Barb Kirkmeyer, who's in that very tight race in the 8th Congressional District. We're going to stick around and see if she's around here tonight. But all in all, a very somber mood here at Republican headquarters in Greenwood Village.
I'm trying to think back to recent Colorado election history when a party went in with one expectation and walked out the door with such a different result than what we saw for Colorado Republicans tonight.
Yeah. It's interesting as to who they were talking to. I think they're trying to dance down an interesting middle here in Colorado, realizing where we're going and where we've been.
Yeah, our thanks to Steve Steger at Republican headquarters. I mean, truly, the ground has shifted beneath the Colorado Republican Party. And if there was any doubt about it, tonight's results in this kind of year show just what they are up against, because their more moderate candidates got walloped.
Yeah.
Their more Trumpian candidates got walloped even more in a year that was supposed to be favorable.
Yeah, it's like they're going to find themselves after this. We're going to take a look at some of the other big statewide races tonight. Democratic Secretary of State Jenna Griswold is expected to hang on to her big, large win over Republican Pam Anderson. Same for Democratic Attorney General Phil Weiser, projected to win over Republican DA John Kellner.
When we return, a pollster and our political analyst break down Democrats' overwhelming victories in Colorado tonight despite the highest of Republican hopes.
And a look at how our statewide ballot measures are shaking out when our election coverage returns. You could say most of us were gobsmacked by this. No one expected this because Lauren Boebert is arguably the best known Republican from Colorado across the country. And for her to be losing at this point, and we know this is not anywhere close to being called, but that's kind of a stunner.
It is a stunner. She was asked by our affiliate KRDO just a moment ago if she would accept a losing result, to which she answered, "We're going to win." Her Democratic opponent, Adam Frisch, formerly of Aspen City Council, claimed in the closing weeks of the race that his team had momentum. And a lot of folks, and I would put myself in that camp, said that's probably more hope than reality. And now we see what at the very least is a very close race. This is what Frisch is saying about it.
I'm not a chest beating type of person, and I'm certainly not going to get over my skis, as we say. And we'll see how the rest of the night plays out, come 9:30 and 11:30 as well. But I'd rather be in our position than Representative Bobert's position right now.
So that's a question that I'd like to ask pollster David Flaherty about. Whose position would somebody rather be in right now with the votes that are counted and the votes that we still think are out there? One caveat here, Bobert's former campaign manager, who's kind of a conservative influencer, Sharona Bishop, is part of this group of conspiracy theorists telling Republicans to vote really late, telling them to vote after 3 p.m. today in person with a blue pen, and that is how you defeat the imaginary election rigging. But what that could mean, David, is that there are late Republican votes for Bobert that will be counted last.
That's absolutely right, Kyle. You know, if you had to ask me which race I would rather be in, I would rather be in an Adam Frisch's situation right now. Even though the Bobert campaign is encouraged to vote at the very last minute, votes can be lost, with not having a lot of time. The irony is, for years, Republicans usually have 100,000 early vote advantages over Democrats or unaffiliated voters for years. But now that, because of election deniers and concerns about election ballot security, especially in Mesa County, perhaps, it's just one of those things where she could lose some votes there. But it also tells me, too, that the fact that Adam Frisch and the unaffiliates must be breaking for him at a level that puts him in a position to win. I would rather be Adam in this place, even though we estimate still 80,000 votes to be counted about that there.
You've got a reputation, David, as a pollster that has given people advice that they do not always want to hear. If you're talking to Colorado's Republicans tonight after the blowout losses that they have received up and down the ballot, what are you telling them about the state of Colorado politically today?
Well, the state of Colorado politically today is, I think, more of a rejection of what the Republican Party stands for right now, in the sense of what were the messages hearing from the O'Day campaign, from the Heidi Ganahl campaign. Look, Coloradans prefer problem solvers, and Coloradans want center-right solutions to their problems. They don't want to talk about furries. They don't want to talk about cutting $12 billion out of the budget. They want real solutions from center-right ideas. That's really what they want, and I just think several campaigns in the last 3 cycles, at least going back before 2016, we've not seen that. And that's what I think really where they need to begin. However, that's still going to be difficult with a very conservative primary voting base of about 400,000 Republicans. Look, they want those Ron Hanks. They want those Lauren Boeberts that make them feel good. They want those Liberty candidates. However, it's just not going to translate into victory on Election Day in November.
David, thank you very much. Let's turn to 9 News Republican political analyst Kelly Maher, joined by Democratic Senator Dominic Moreno, who is not on the ballot tonight and was willing to come in and represent his party's views. Senator Moreno, did you ever, in your wildest dreams, think that Democrats could be in the position that they are in Colorado tonight?
It's more than I could have ever dreamed or hoped for, honestly. This is pretty crazy to see that in a midterm election with a Democratic president, that it looks like the Democrats are on track to blow everything out of the water here in Colorado. That is obviously more than we could have ever expected, but a great night, obviously, for the Colorado Democrats.
Kelly, we just heard from David. What do the Republicans need to do at this point? What do they have to do? I mean, I don't feel like Colorado is California. What's going on?
Well, Kim, it's still early in terms of the question of what these congressional races are going to look like. We still don't know for sure about Lauren Boebert, but also we don't know yet about the 8th Congressional District, which is Barb Kirkmeyer. And frankly, she could really emerge as a leader in the Republican Party here in Colorado. Also, it sure sounded to me like Governor Polis was giving a pre-presidential speech. So I think that Republicans in Colorado need to get on message and get together. I will be interested to see, though, if Polis moving forward kind of keeps this libertarian, middle-of-the-road bent that clearly worked for him tonight.
Work for him tonight. It'll be interesting to see, because Democrats nationwide have not shown an interest in that type of politics, at least not in their national candidates before. Kelly Maher, Senator Dominic Moreno, thank you. We'll be right back.
Okay, we want to hit some of these ballot measures, taxes and booze. Taxes first, how much we pay in state income tax and how that money is spent. Prop 121 reduces the state income tax rate from 4.55% down to 4.40. Right now, voters have strongly supported that lower rate, and the yes votes are ahead, 65 to 34. Prop 123 also deals with state income tax in a roundabout way. It sets aside a portion of that revenue collected to pay for affordable housing programs in our state. That ballot measure is really close right now. The yes votes ahead by just 1 point. And let's talk about booze. Coloradans voted on 3 measures related to booze, and at this hour, Colorado appears uninterested in changing its alcohol laws. Prop 124 would let liquor stores license holders increase the number of stores each year all the way to an unlimited amount in 2037. Not popular tonight. The noes are ahead 62 to 33. Prop 125, that's the one that allows wine in grocery stores, same places that just a few years ago allowed beer in the grocery stores. It's pretty neck and neck right now. We got 50-50 split there. And Prop 126 that allows liquor stores to partner with third-party companies like DoorDash to deliver booze instead of having to rely on their own employees. Also looks like a fail right now, 53 to 47%. A lot of money spent on those booze items.
One of the big hopes for Colorado Republicans going into tonight was that they could win back the state Senate. That would allow them to block the Democrats' agenda from Governor Jared Polis and the Colorado House, currently under the control of Democrats. Like so many Republican dreams tonight, it went down like the Hindenburg. Marshall is here to take a look at the balance of power in the state Senate.
I'm going to have to rank my surprises. The booze issues on the ballots failing right now, the national, or what we saw from statewide issues, and now this. The balance of power in the state Senate, the Republicans thought this was going to be their best shot at getting power back and at least preventing Democrats in the House and Governor Polis from just doing whatever they want. And the balance of power requires in the Senate 18 to be in control. So this is what it looked like at the start of the day, because half the seats are up for election and half are not. And so 12 Democrats are not up for election, so they're secure. 6 Republicans not up for election, they're secure. And if every race holds the way I've seen it, the results currently, this is what we're looking at for next year. The balance, oh, I did one too many Republicans. So not only did the Republicans not get to the 18, the Democrats are looking like they're going to pick up 2 extra seats in the Senate. And so this is significant because it says not only did you not convince enough voters in those close races to give us a chance, you've lost 2 seats. In the State House, I'm not going to color all these. Every single one is up for election. This is how the night started if it ended up exactly the way it was, which was 41-24. And now it's worse for the Republicans than I thought. Based on how the results are shaping up right now, if nothing changes, Democrats gain 5 seats, and this is just an overwhelming majority in the State House. And when we talk about the minority, usually as in the minority, you can have delays is your best option at slowing legislation. You're not going to stop it because you don't have the votes to stop it, but you can do different techniques, ask for bills to be read at length, things like that. But when this is the margin, if this is what holds, Kim tells me that this is the margin Republicans held decades ago.
Yeah.
I can't remember the last time I saw something this drastic. And it could change. There's a few close races where maybe the Republicans gain back a seat or 2 if things change. But man, this is going to be whatever the Democrats want, they're going to get. Now, the question is, how many of the blues are liberals? How many of the blues are more progressive? And is there going to be infighting that prevents legislation from happening?
That may be the storyline.
And what could end up happening is that Democrats no longer need all of their members to vote for something to get something through. So if you have the center and the far left of the party that want to do something, they can leave the more moderate folks behind, or they could leave the progressives behind on something. That could cut both ways, but they would no longer be in a situation where everybody would have to be rowing in the same direction.
33 votes is all it takes to get something out of the House. So if you lose 13 Democrats, well, you still get it passed.
That's wild. The idea that they could have a dozen of their own folks vote against something of theirs and still pass it. That's a different landscape in Colorado. Our election coverage continues after this.
Okay, we just want you to know that AP has called Prop 121. It has passed, meaning Coloradans will pay less in state income tax. And as Marshall says, yes, pay less right now. However, wait, there's more to it.
Yeah, a few years from now, when the state doesn't have as much money as it thinks it has, that's where, hey, how are we going to pay for things?
Yeah. You all witnessed Colorado political history tonight. Not even the Democrats thought they would walk away with what they did this evening. An incredible night in Colorado politics. You all voted, you did it, we just watched. Good night.